This week on Gettin Deep, we got Ronan Freeburn.
We got real deep.
Real deep. Oh, yeah. 2 hours and 20 minutes, I'm pretty certain.
I thought we were only going to last an hour and a half. We did pretty good.
Oh, no, I had no doubt. I had no doubt. I was like, I've spoken to you before, and I was like, you've got a wealth of information.
We can talk.
Yeah. And we pretty much went into your history as a promoter, not just for comedy, but for music, starting with back doing Rotfest, was it called?
Yeah, Rotofest, yeah.
Rotofest,
Look, I think it was very much the beginning of my life as a promoter. Then we talked a little bit about the current era of me being a promoter, and then some things such as how the industry works in WA, and a little bit of, sort of professional ethics and stuff like that. So basically, this is going to be the most viewed of all Darcy's podcasts.
The biggest one at the moment is a lady who has 23 personalities with dissociative identity disorder.
Okay. If you're a comedian in the scene, if you want to know if I actually talked about you behind your back, you're going to have to listen to the full 2 hours to find out.
But we also did touch on government funding for comedy in WA, and I know there's people in the scene in comedy in Perth that are going, "Ooh, what does that mean? Who gets the money?" Even if you're outside of Perth and you're listening to this,
all of us,
it's good to see the people that are trying to push funding and where it would go and what it means for comedy in Perth, or if you're in a different state, what it would do for you if you were to do the same.
I guess the gist of it is the petition's happening at wacomedy.com. Get on board. Regardless, I'm going forward, and if you support what I'm doing, we're going to be doing interesting things in comedy. If you don't, I'll still probably book you, but it's going to be harder to do all these great things.
Yeah. So, enjoy.
Well, I've got tough shoes to follow because Martin Darcy was on the podcast last week. Or I just seen on social media he won Raw.
Yeah.
That's unexpected, but also
no way.
He's worked very hard.
I was like, you're winning this year.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you might have more insight at ground level about how he's been going with kind of club gigs. Some of these people, I only see them once every 6 months. So that's great.
Well, the first time I seen Martin, I was like, this cunt's so funny.
Yeah.
And he's like, nah. I'm like, dude, you are hilarious. Like,
yes.
You can just see the way his brain works. He's like, oh, this is way different.
Yeah.
And I was always like, you could win it, you could win it, you could win it. He didn't enter last year at all.
Really?
Yeah, it was me and him was at the state finals.
Yes.
And he picked who was going to win. He picked Jazz Bin as a winger while watching it. And I was like, nah, because Gareth Knight was that year and destroyed.
Yes.
Like, tore the place apart. And then Sardi behind him killed. And then Jazz was like 7 gigs in, was a ex-detective, had this story with some punchlines in it, and I was like, cool, work on that for a year and then it'll be dope.
Yeah, but one.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on here? I
guess maybe I bought into Martin Darcy's mindset because he's always like, oh, it wasn't good enough, I'm going to get better. Maybe I just believed his it's all been a big trick. He's had the thing the whole time.
No, in his head, he's like, he was like crying on stage. You could see he didn't think he was going to win either.
It's great. Great story. And one thing I like about his particular story, on stories, that guy's doing his little joke every day. He must go to like 400 and something. So I love the fact that someone that was committed to comedy.
Oh, he loves writing jokes.
So that's a great outcome. And I remember even the first time I think I seen him at one of my gigs, I think it was Side Splitter, he did his purple crystal kind of hippie smoke. And I just thought, man, that was so good. So I definitely seen some promise in a couple of the jokes that I seen.
But it's even before. Just the way he tells it. He's like weird ass mannerisms he does. He's got this thing he's doing at the moment where he'll like lick his lips for something that's got nothing to do with licking his lips.
That just made me lick my lips.
Like he's just looking weird at the crowd because they're laughing. He's like, and you're like, what are you doing?
Is that part of what he's kind of going for?
Well, I don't know if it's like some weird reaction or if it's like, but it's hilarious because you just see it and you're like,
what's going on here?
Yeah.
So look, he's unique. I think in my mind, just because this particular person has been just steamrolling through everything, I just kind of thought, without knowing too much about all the acts, I just seen Ian Burke on the lineup. I'm like, oh, he's going to be tough to beat. That's just what I kind of thought. Only because I've had experience with him at my events.
I think the way I see it, that Burke versus Martin is Burke's darker by far.
Totally.
So Raw comedy, you can tell they don't want dark.
They don't.
So it's like Burke's clean but dark.
Yeah, there's less of an edge.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, fuck your mother dark, but it's like, maybe that happened.
Yes.
So it's like it's there, but it's not so in your face. But that's why it works so well for him.
And do you know what? See, with he's got like Ian's got like he's got a confidence and like a masculine kind of power. He'll love me saying that, and that's probably not what Raw's looking for.
Well, yeah, he's Irish, he's white.
Yeah,
he's not a minority.
I think I don't want to trash the Raw competition. I think it's definitely got its place. I think everyone knows that it does have a certain kind of flavour that it's looking for.
It's TV comedy.
Yeah.
That's if you're looking at something that's going to be like, we can sell this to TV, that's
who can we put on Utopia as a guest star? It's very much the way that I've seen it over the years, and it's been probably told to me this way, which got implanted. It's about signing talent and casting, as you mentioned. So you hit the nail on the head. It's got a component of casting, and also as much as it's a comedy competition, it's about jokes, they're also looking very much for personalities and the people that kind of don't want to take anything away, because when you sort of look through the winners, that like people who have got talents, just on a couple, I'm not talking about WA, I'm just talking nationally.
Yeah.
You do sometimes look and there's some really bright, second and third places, and you go, hey. And the thing that sucks about it, and maybe this is the competition thing overall, the people that don't win sometimes take it so heavy, like, hey, my career is kind of done. And I think maybe once upon a time that was not necessarily the case, but people could kind of believe that and be a bit screwed. But the great thing, I think we even had this chat previously, you can carve out your own path now. So if someone does, just say, for example, they do quite well, but they don't win, they can hit the club circuit, there's plenty of gigs around, they can start building their own profile and kind of find their own way without necessarily going through the system route.
Yeah, I think there's so many angles of comedy that everyone has access to now.
Yes.
It's not like, hey, this is the one path you can go. When I was 19, I entered Raw.
Yes.
And I didn't get anywhere. And I was like, I guess I'm not a comedian. And that was it. And then didn't come back for fucking however long.
Yeah.
17 years or some shit. It took me that long to be like,
but isn't it that kind of, in that era, it was the waiting to be picked.
I didn't know that there was anything more.
Right.
Like, I was 19.
Perth was a small place then, hey? You know what I mean? Like, just the mindset and even your awareness of probably comedy. I'm guessing you probably didn't assume there was that much comedy happening.
I didn't think there was at all. I didn't think there was anything else happening. I thought Raw was it. And if you didn't get Raw, you're fucked. And I was like, guess I suck. And then I tried to I did a stand-up set at one of my mates' gigs who did music.
Yeah.
And it was the worst idea. I think that crushed my spirit so hard.
Understandably, I'm guessing there was no chairs, and it was before.
No, it was a sit-down crowd.
Right.
It was. Do you know who Matt Gresham is by any chance?
Of course. Okay. He used to be was he on Australian Idol or one of those?
It was his gig.
Yeah.
Like, I've been mates with him since primary school.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, Darky, come do a set. And I was like, all right. And I had all these dick jokes lined up.
Wow.
And then I was at back. He's like, no, don't do any of that. And I was like, what am I going to do then?
Do you know what it could be? It's almost like when a crowd expects one thing, that's where all their energy is going. And you're such a diversion from those expectations. I think the flip side of that is anytime someone runs a comedy event and tries to switch the energy to like music or like an after party, like that's what we used to do when we used to run gigs. It was like we'd run a gig and it could even be during the week in Perth. We're like, hey, we want to kind of party and have a good time. You sort of try and change it into something else. But people's intention for most part is either to go have some dinner, see the band, have a couple of drinks, or
Send
see the comedy show. And I think, yeah, look, but it is what it is, man. Like, at least, even though those experiences happened, you know, you maybe weren't right at 19, and to go have all that life experience and come back, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I don't hate any of the path that I've tread.
Yeah.
But I've taught myself this from a young age. I was like, I wouldn't be who I am now if I didn't do the bullshit that got me here.
Yes.
So at no point do I go, fuck, what if I just stayed there? I was like, what if I did? Maybe I would have just ate shit for years with my dumb fucking crap jokes and never got smart enough to write better ones.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Regrets suck.
Yeah.
Even comedians in Perth have chatted to me off stage and said, oh, look, I started too late. And I'm like...
Do you like doing it?
Well, this person's doing good stuff. And I said, the fact that you sort of started this in maybe like your late 20s, I reckon your drive is so much more, and I can see it in the way your kind of career is progressing. If you had a rolled in at 21, the longer you're around, that energy isn't, like, you wouldn't be able to maintain hunger for like that long if you start at 21. It's harder to come in and go, hey, I don't want to work my crappy job. I'm 27. It's now or never. Let's roll. I think, I just had to give them props. It's like, you're doing great stuff. You can't regret that you missed starting at 21. It's done.
Yeah, it's too late. And like, there's a bonus factor, you know? You've probably gained some skills.
I think so.
And from what I can tell about comedy without shitting on too many people, there's lunatics involved. And like, I don't think I would have coped at 20, 21, 22 without getting in a punch on. I would have definitely got...
Do you mean with other comedians in the scene?
Yeah, for sure. Like,
yeah.
I've got a way more way of tolerating bullshit. Like,
your testosterone's probably dropped as well.
Well, just like, shit just rolls off my back. Like, it kind of did then, but someone did something really bad to me that it's happened probably 4 times already where it's not even that bad, but I would have took it as really bad to me. And I would be like, nah, and I would have fucking burned the world.
You're not a dweeb. Like, let's be honest, like, in the comedy scene, it's kind of split up into different temperaments, right? So you've got the people that would be happy to play Dungeons and Dragons after a gig, and they're nice people. And then you've got the crew that, you know, want to talk shop, have some beers, talk about movies, talk about music, and you'd probably be in that camp, right?
Yeah.
You're not doing the whole nerdy thing.
I can do both.
Yeah, great.
I'm a freak.
There's probably... Is it split 50-50? I don't know. But there's characters, there's another person in the comedy scene that's probably somewhere around your kind of level. They're into like metal and stuff. And I get along with them, but they kind of have issues coming up with different personality types.
Yeah.
They're probably handling it a little bit worse than you. But
I haven't hit anyone.
Yet. I think it's... We've got to be realistic. Whether it's in the live music scene or live comedy, this is not baseline standard humans. It's lunatics on all levels, and you're gonna get clashes. And I think to some degree, everyone believes they're the main character, but some people think they're the mainest character. Yeah. And for me to talk about this stuff, I'd be completely naive to say that the way I carry myself and interact with people wouldn't rub people the wrong way. Probably less so now. I tend to not be around as much besides the gigs. But back in the day, there'd be people that for what you may not even realise you're doing it, bit of bravado, whatever else, you're going to rub them the wrong way. So I think you've got to be realistic, and I am as well. There's people I don't necessarily get along with. They may not be bad people, and I've got to assume that other people have the same issue with things that I do. It's just...
Yeah. I have no aversions that there's definitely people that don't like me for whatever reason. I don't know what they are, but I know that people are like, that cunt's fucked.
Well, I think you've got a different energy being kind of from you're into metal and stuff, you're more of a dirt. It just is what it is. I think the best way is...
I think I put off a very homeless vibe to some people as well.
Really?
Yeah, I think some people are like, this man is unhinged and homeless and doing all sorts of fringe shit. And then they're like, the cunt's got like 5 kids, and does he? It's like, is he telling anything that's the truth?
They connect the dots. I remember there was someone in the comedy scene that's a good person. They're more of a viral comedy person, right? They did a bit of stand up, and we were making like some comedy skits and stuff together, and we needed like some props, like nangs and stuff, as part of the thing.
Yeah.
And this person kind of go, oh, I assume you would have had all that stuff. So in their mind, they thought that we were kind of heavy, kind of like party drug users and doing all sorts of things. And I'm like, hey, where did you get that from? Hey, we like a good time and, you know, we dabble and do some stuff. But this person thought like it was serious.
Yeah, like, that's right there.
And I'm like, mate, like, Jesus Christ, I need some PR on the case here.
I think it's just there's the stories that other people tell for anyone is all based on like such little information.
We don't really know each other, like in the comedy scene.
Well, it's like this lunatic's talking about fucking, like me, for one, talking about a joke where like I walked in on my stepsister and my best friend fucking.
Yeah.
And it's actually a dog. And they're like, what the fuck is going through his head?
And they expand upon that. And,
yeah.
And I don't know if you experience this, I definitely do. Because in many cases, these relationships between other people in the comedy scene, you only interact with them in terms of a bit of a hello, a bit of a small talk. And for me personally, and this is a normal thing, I find it bizarre sometimes. Like I could be gigging with people for maybe 3 to 5 years, and there's these moments you're just like, I don't even know these people.
Yeah, no, I think the bonus is I've done sales for so long. So like my ability to read people is pretty fucking up there.
Yeah.
And like I said, I sell houses. So my like gauge on so much shit.
It's attuned.
Yeah, and like my whole thing is prodding to get information out of people.
I think I used to be like that, and I think maybe in this latest year of being a promoter, I don't. Maybe I'm to blame to some degree for not learning more about some of the people. I don't kind of probe and go, hey, by the way, X person, what do you actually do? Because you know the way we have to assume that a lot of the people obviously have a day job. They don't talk about it. Some of them don't talk about it as part of their act. They don't talk about it backstage. And you just kind of make up these little like stories. You're like, oh, such and such. Yeah, they live in Freo and I think they're a support worker. And that could be completely off the mark. They don't live in Freo and they're not a support worker.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
Well, it's nearly every comedian laughs when I tell them what to do. They're like, what?
It kind of makes sense though.
Yeah.
When you told me at the Mandurah gig, I could kind of it wasn't a big surprise.
Yeah. That's surprising. You might be a small amount of people to pick it.
Well, I think people that have the ability to talk and be outgoing, that goes hand in hand with sales.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that when I was looking for some help, you were outgoing enough to put your hand up. And I think I knew you were doing the podcast and stuff at the time. And then I got to see you interact with the general public. You can kind of see. I mean, if someone's like an introvert...
I sell stuff you don't do.
You'd be like, you are not a salesperson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe OnlyFans, that's about it.
Just an online shop somewhere.
Yeah, no interaction.
So how long, I know I'm so far from a question, how long have you been a promoter in comedy in WA?
Well, the interesting thing about it is it started being a music promoter.
Okay.
So myself and my friend / business partner at the time, Lee Chalmers, I got to give him a shout out because the whole early part of me doing stuff involved him. So we loved our music, we loved our partying, we loved comedy, just all things fun. And around the time that we were sort of coming out of university, I think we were really bored at the idea of normal jobs and all that kind of stuff. He's an accountant, I'm a marketing person. And we used to just sit around, party, have a good time, whatever else. And we were listening to the old era of the Red Hot Chili Peppers from their self-titled album, I think it's 1983, up to Mother's Milk, which is around 89. We still like Blood Sugar Sex Magic and One Hot Minute, but we were really digging the early discography. Really funky, party vibe, and really enjoying that kind of stuff. We were probably also going and hanging out at the Funk Club, which was upstairs at the Leaderville Hotel where Suicide's Room is now.
Yeah.
And we approached the guy that runs that, Jimmy the Lips Murphy, who is kind of well known around Perth.
I know who Jimmy Lips is.
Yeah, so he's known as both a sort of town team political sort of guy and also runs a funk club. We said, oh man, like the funk club's really great. We should do this Red Hot Chili Pepper night, but we'll do the funky stuff and we should do it at the funk club. Let's reach out to the owner and see if they're keen to do it. So we'd be hanging out at the funk club. They got to know us. And I think we eventually told him, hey, we're going to send you a proposal. He's like, yeah, man, yeah, because he's that sort of character. We put a PowerPoint presentation together. We met him at a coffee shop. And it was called the Chili Pepper Funk Fest. It was about 16 slides.
Sounds like you tried more than most people do for a gig.
Well, I think just because we had a business background and we were enthusiastic, we just knew that if we approached it professionally, that was just the way to do it. And we pitched it to him straight away. He's like, yeah, man, totally. And we did.
We've done it with one slide.
Yeah, we probably. It was. I know with that 18 slides wasted. So he goes, yeah, totally down for it. And all we had to do was convince a band called Dyslexic Fish to learn a set of some of the old Chili Peppers stuff, and then there would be other funk stuff happening throughout the night. So we promoted that gig. It was 2004, and it sold out. It was like 450 people rammed up into the upstairs of the Leaderville Hotel. We were having the best time of our lives. We must have been, if I'm kind of getting my years correct, we must have been maybe like 25 or 26. We're either just out of uni or a couple of years out. We're having the best time. It's like sick, yeah. So I think anyone that's had some success off the bat, whether that's even your first set of comedy going well, whether if you're in a band, your first thing goes really well, it just sets you're in motion.
Yeah. You obviously got something that works.
Yeah, we're like, oh man, we did everything right, and we approached it smartly, and we put the work in, and it paid off. So the next time we tried to follow it up, we did a Parliament Funkadelic, which was less mainstream, more kind of getting into the George Clinton kind of funk music. He produced one of the Chili Peppers albums from that era anyway. But we did that as our second gig, thinking, oh man, this is going to be great as well. And I think it was the first year the Dockers got into the AFL finals. It was a Friday night, and that gig that we did, the second one, tanked. I think we had like maybe like 120 people, which isn't a disaster, but after you've done like 460...
After selling out.
But I guess the thing that was kind of cool in retrospect, the next thing we did, one of our friends was in a Tool tribute band, and they were fucking good, and they'd already done some gigs, and we went to check them out, and at that time, Tool's peaking, man. They've done maybe Lateralis. I don't think in my mind, the slight downward kind of trajectory of their career hadn't happened yet. So they're on the peak. They're just like that.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a plateau of Tool.
Yeah.
It's like hit a spot and it stayed there.
10,000 Days and made. They're not bad, but I think the energy, Lateralis were going peaking. So it's around that time they're this mystical band, and everyone would never even think in Perth, you don't touch Tool. How's your drummer going to pull that off? But one of our guys, he had the electronic drum kit. He works at Mega Music as just a side gig. He's still talented as hell. He can pull it off. He can do the thing, hit all the right bits and pieces, and the singer could mimic Maynard's voice as well. So we're like, man, this is our comeback gig. So we did. They were called Eon Blue, and was a tribute to Tool, and that one sold out as well. But the cool thing there is we did it in the same place as the funk gigs, but we went out on our own. So we were getting the rock crowd. We weren't using the funk club's crew. Yep. That gig sold out, and I remember, even to this day, and this is totally cool. I don't know this person personally, but there was like a forum called Technoscape, which was about all the electronic music scene. And I'm fairly sure one of the guys from Pendulum, he had commented, "Oh, they're not going to be able to pull this Tool off. No one can drum like Danny Carey." I think one of the guys in Pendulum is a drummer, so he had some understanding to know this was going to be a difficult thing for anyone to pull off. Anywho, I remember on that night, there was people coming up the staircases and going, "Look, we want to hear it before we give..." Like, the real diehards that kind of know that they're not going to go see a shit Tool tribute night. They go, "Look, we want to hear it before we pay, so can we just, listen?" Once it started and they heard it and they heard the vocals, they're like, "Oh, come." So that went really well. And that was the last music gig that we did. And I think the feeling after doing the music gigs we weren't musicians at the time, and it just kind of felt like you're never really going to be quite in the scene or quite understand it if you're not like a musician.
If you're not a musician, yeah.
We were just kind of using the fact we like music and we know how to promote. I think there was this kind of next level of production and stuff that was just, we didn't really know sound engineers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like we didn't know stuff. Now I could, if I wanted to rock a music gig now, I have enough contacts, bang. But at the time, we're a bit green. So we kind of were like, oh, this has been good. And I think at the same time, we were making short films and stuff like that, like around Perth early days, doing stupid things like that. I'm trying to think. So the first comedy gig that we did, we must have been into comedy already, you know, watching George Carlin, Bill Hicks, all that kind of stuff. We definitely went to the Laugh Resort when it was upstairs at the Brisbane Hotel.
Yep.
Sorry, not Brisbane, I should say, Brass Monkey. And that was amazing.
That's an old room.
Yeah, so that was look, to be honest, we went there, really welcoming environment, and one thing to their credit, and it still exists to this day, Laugh Resort is welcoming, and it's one of the best places you can send anyone to get into the comedy scene. They're supportive, and that room was always rammed on a Wednesday, ran really well, and we liked it, and we jumped up and did some stand-up as well, and I think at that point, we wanted to, I think everyone does this when you like something, like, well, we want to do our one. And you've obviously run your own gigs and stuff like that. I think what had happened...
I kind of have to sometimes.
Yeah, well, I think we just kind of knew that we enjoyed promoting stuff and we found this new little world, like the little comedy world. And
it's a lot less effort than running a music
I think so. And knowing that we liked the Laugh Resort... and the people, but we were scallywags. We want a rock star party vibe, you know. Like, so I think what we just wanted to
not very common for comedy as well.
No, yeah. So we just wanted to have a good time and drink beer and laugh and all that kind of stuff. So the funny thing is, the first comedy room that we actually ran was upstairs at the Leaderville Hotel where Susai's doing his thing. Oh. So we looked at the market at the time. I think this would have been 2009, really early in that year. It could have even been late 2008, but I don't believe so. I think it was 2009.
It's roughly when I did that Raw gig.
You were floating around, man.
Yeah.
You were around.
I did one gig.
Yeah, hey, I don't think... Who knows, man? There could be a strange world that we ran, because I think we definitely went to the Charles and checked out some of that stuff as well. So I think because we knew that room was so good from running the music gigs, we're like, oh, we'll do comedy up here. We'll do comedy. And what we knew at the time is, hey... there wasn't that many rooms anyway. There might have been Laugh Resort. There was definitely Shapiro's, which was where Oasis is on a Tuesday. They were probably doing a Friday. Comedy Lounge was only, from my memory, just a Thursday. And I think they had just moved from Hyde Park Hotel to the Charles.
Yeah, so that's where I did Raw at Charles.
Yeah, so they weren't banging out Fridays and Saturdays. They were still a Thursday night gig. There wasn't much going on really in Perth when you think about it. Maybe like 5 to 6 things. And we said, hey... we're going to roll in, and we're not going to not that we could because we're still pretty inexperienced. Let's find a night of the week where the comedy's not happening, and that can be our little thing. So we chose a Sunday, and it was called Happy Endings, and the artwork was basically like a microphone with jizz coming out of it.
Nice.
And it was all this jerk off stuff, right? And the funny thing about this is years later, Doug Stanhope found out about this comedy club that we ran, and he goes, oh man, that's awesome. That's the best thing I've ever heard. I think he asked the question on his Twitter, what's the worst comedy club name you've ever been to? And Mike G, who you probably know from around town, he goes, he would have gigged at this gig, he goes, oh, Happy Endings. They had like a microphone jerking off, and I think he might have eventually uploaded the artwork, or maybe I did, and Doug Stanhope goes, no, man, that's the best thing ever.
It's fucking
so
dope.
That kind of reassured, like when I kind of look back at it, see the rock and roll, Bill Hicks, Doug Stanhope school, that's kind of what we would, as promoters, kind of, we're going to be the renegade guides. And so we did that, and that actually packed out. So when we were running that...
The crude shit does work. A lot of people have this we're better than that. But I'm like, fuck, there's a lot of people that aren't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like, give me that. That's
I like clever crude.
Yeah. Well, clever crude actually makes me laugh. If it's just like lame crude,
like
it doesn't
a
really
fart,
work.
that's not going to do it. So that club went quite well. It didn't last that long. The thing that really sucked for us, that was the time where the Leaderville Hotel had recently just built onto the Garden. They'd become all la-di-da and famous. Had been just the Leaderville, and they did the extensions, and they had this preppy kind. He would have been maybe about 35. 40.
Yeah, that's when Wednesday started going off, right?
I think they were already going off, but then it became even this bigger. The Garden was like the coolest thing Perth had ever seen when it
Yeah, because I remember Wednesday nights at Leaderville, you had pretty much like, it was Leaderville or it was, what's Flight Club now in Freo? What the fuck was it?
Oh, the drill hall that's they were trying to shut down, Freo Social.
Newport.
Oh, right.
So it was Leaderville and Newport on a Wednesday night.
I did Leaderville quite a bit.
Yeah, and then Black Betty's as well. Black Betty's when it was.
Yes.
So
I never had a good time at Black Betty's.
Yeah, on a Wednesday. It used to be like, that was the start of my week.
Yeah.
It was Wednesday night.
That used to be the post office, didn't it? That's a long time ago.
I don't know the post office. I know Black Betty's.
I think I've got, So we
Jack
did.
Rabbits now.
Yeah. I was thinking about that club. I wonder if it's, you know, when a club's been around for a while, there's a thing with clubs, they need to refresh. See, once something's been in market for a while, you can keep the owners.
Yeah.
You need to change the name. You need to do things over. And I feel like, to their credit, when that came out as Jack Rabbit Slims, I think it was like the Pile Rats guys and some of those trendy kind of young promoters. When it came in, it was kind of cool. And I think because it's been around, I could be wrong, because it's been around for a while, it kind of looked like other fancy, shiny things happen in Perth.
It seems to hit and miss there.
Yeah.
But that's the same as Lucy's Love Shack, which used to be Amber. It's hit and miss there. Sometimes you go there
I think it might be the same owner. I think it's connected.
That would make sense. Because Lucy's Love Shack sometimes is fucking packed.
Yeah.
And you go other times, you're like, God, this sucks.
Yeah.
Why is no one here?
Well, maybe it's just the luck of booking, and hey, nothing against them, but yeah, the Leaderville thing worked really well. This sucked, and this might happen to other, people that you, and look, I think it might have even happened to you with a couple of your adventures. So we got the tap on the shoulder going, oh, this isn't worth us doing, keeping open on a Sunday. And here's the funny thing, they weren't losing money, they wouldn't be making, but it was something they didn't want to have to think about. So even though technically they wouldn't have made a loss, the mental baggage of them having to staff and all that kind of stuff. And I remember I was working part-time. I'd quit my corporate job, and I think I was working part-time at JB Hi-Fi. And he called me up on, I think, like the Sunday afternoon at like 3 o'clock. And
Just before the gig?
Yeah, going, should we, wanting to cancel. And I was like, man,
I've had this happen when I was doing poker.
To be honest, if they go, look, we're going to give you the grace period or let you know a week in advance. It's just it's so disrespectful. And I think we ended up just not doing the last one. And it's just having to call people up. But
I've had places can on me on the day and don't come here. We're not going to be open.
It's so rude.
And you're like, motherfucker.
It's a disrespect thing.
Yeah. Well, with poker, you had to pay a month in advance for every permit.
Yeah.
So it was not only was it you're fucking us, but this cost us money too.
Right.
And you're now I'm out of pocket because you're a cunt.
Yeah.
And you're and you just canned it when we had an agreement. And you're sometimes trying to enforce someone on a written agreement is this, what a cunt. Fuck off. I'm
trying to think so when that kind of finished, I think the sucky thing when you're sort of early on, you're trying to build your reputation. And if you've got projects that aren't kind of working, it's fucking with the perception. And you know, when you try and explain something to someone, right? If someone goes to you in the comedy world, this is back in the day, oh, so what happened? The more you explain what happened, the less they believe you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You're actually trying to have a conversation about it to get somewhere. And they're whatever.
People just kind of assume, oh, nah, you didn't really, you weren't doing a good job. They just cancelled you because it was shit. And it's nah, we got photos, people when it was good. But anywho, so that kind of
there's a little tip that I give anyone that I talk about doing rooms with.
Yeah.
I'm find a venue that has a night and a spare room where they're already busy. So you're not interrupting any of
them. They're already open is what you're saying?
They're already open?
Yeah.
They've already got shit happening. And then you just go, hey, can we have that room over there? We'll do everything else. It just automatically means, boom, they're never going to complain to you. They're never going to say shit. They're going to be oh, we've already got shit open. We never have that room open anyway.
Great strategy.
Boom.
Great strategy. And you'll probably know this from the things and the venues you've been to and things like that. after a while you develop a spidey sense. See if you know the people that are working there are excited and they're responding to emails, and when you ask them to do the social media posts, see when you get all those good little signs and them sort of doing things, you're like, great. If any of your crew that have got any inklings of looking for venues and stuff, if you get this feeling that you're pushing things out, yeah,
fuck it.
that is or big delays in replies for emails. If you're forever, because ultimately they're generating money as well. They're making money off the bar. So any of those little kind of feelings where they go cold or they don't do anything, it's just like just don't do the gig and just walk away and find one. Because look, there are plenty of places in Perth that are like frothing for it, and there's like, so look, there's some amazing like bar managers that like they wear all the hats, they do the marketing, and see that little sign where they want to make it work, and they might go, look, we're going to throw the little 250 to help you guys see your face. All those good little signs. Any situation where you feel like that, yeah, like you said, you're a burden, or they're being a bit like umming and ahhing, walk.
Yeah.
That's the biggest...
you shouldn't have to convince them this is a good idea.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're doing this. Do you want to be part of it? We can work as a team and win.
100%.
If it's like, oh, why are you here? Yeah, fuck, okay.
Or hey, we know we agreed that we were doing it this week, but hey, we're going to have to skip one because there's like a wedding function, and we'll do it the next one. See, once all those parameters of the goalpost start changing.
Yeah, you're like, no, we had an agreement, man. Fuck you.
And you know what the thing is? I think what comes back to it, see the fact that you've got the background in sales, and it's agreements, and it's contract and understandings.
And I've been fucked over so many times.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that Joe Blow from the comedy scene may not be quite as savvy when it comes to business or negotiations, and they just go in kind of naively, hey, it looks good, I'd like to do it. And I think one of the other things that's really key, and it doesn't need to be complicated, and I still do this to this day, do just a one-pager in writing, a memo of understanding. It doesn't need to be overly graphic designed, what you're going to do and what you expect from them. Because inevitably with running any type of gig, things are always going to hit a curveball. If you can go back to a document and go...
That's what we agreed on.
Because, little verbal understandings and all that kind of... I think we got told that by, like, our parents. Like, see anything verbal, it means nothing.
Oh.
It's all got to be...
Paper's fucking nothing half the time.
Yeah.
Some people just go, we don't give a fuck. You're like, okay, cheers, cunt.
Well, it's true, but at least you can make it... if you really have to kick someone in the guts while you're having your battle with them, no one likes to have to look at their own words and kind of go, I didn't say that. If you got it...
Yeah.
If it's verbal, I didn't mean it like that. So even there'll be times even in casual kind of collaborations where you say, oh, it's all good. It's like, no, put it in writing. And it's not because you're being a hard ass. You're kind of protecting both people.
Yeah. You've got something to fall back on.
Yeah.
That does help.
So I think after that one, that was the first gig.
That was like 2009-ish.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, some of the cats that are still floating around, Susai would have gigged there. Mike G would have gigged there. There's Colin Ebsworth would have did a spot there. So like there's people from that era, and there's no doubt in my mind, and I'm totally chill because it's a great space. That room would have been in the back of Susai's mind somewhere, being hey, that because the space layout wise did work for comedy.
I think there's just so many rooms that I see, and I'm like, that was definitely used for a gig at some point. That's used for a gig at some point.
Walk in,
yeah,
you get a sense, and that space always what happened when I was alluding to that era of the Leaderville turning into like the Wednesday nights, and they just look and go, hey, we're making cash here. See live music, it's a little novelty, but the money and what's going through the till is down at the Garden and on Wednesdays. So after that kind of folded, the next big thing that we did, I don't think we ran any comedy clubs, but in that year, we ended up doing the first Roto Fest, which was like a comedy, film and music festival on Rottnest. And
you ran the whole thing?
Yeah, so that was 2009, and the way that it happened, at that time, Lee's sister worked at the Rottnest Island Authority. They were looking for something during the off-peak time around August to get young people to the island, and I think she hit him up and go, hey, you guys are into sort of making short films and stuff. Like, they want to do something to bring young people to Rottnest. Do you guys want to do like a comedy film festival? And we were sitting around his apartment, like, yeah, that'd be great. But then we kind of go like, oh, we know what people our age are like. We're like, that's not enough to get people to Rottnest, just a comedy film festival. And it was almost like, what else do we like? Okay, we like comedy, we like music, we'll do a comedy film and music festival. So we kind of then pitched that idea back to them. And the cool thing at that time, Lee had been made redundant, or he quit his job as an accountant. No, he quit being an accountant. He hated it. I think he's like a more outgoing person. He was working like next to NPC, Solar's bean counter. So he decided to quit because he was unfulfilled. And then maybe 3 months later, because I was misbehaving in advertising, when they needed to pick people to make redundant, I was like, oh, he doesn't really care about this job. We'll get rid of him. I got a power. Anyway, so we
got the experience you needed.
Well, I did learn a lot from them, and the funny thing is they ended up doing free advertising for us for Rottofest, so I didn't burn the bridge that hard. Anywho, so we got to. We were like, oh fuck yeah, we got the safety nets are out, the training wheels are off. What are we gonna do, man? And because that opportunity came from Rottnest Island, it was like, okay, we got to do a proposal, and they're going to give us some funding. Okay, we got to find a way to get more money. And what had happened around this time, there was this website, it was almost like a precursor to LinkedIn. And if it had all these emails of high people in corporate and business, right? And if you give them an email of someone high up, they give you access to someone so what we did, right? We just made up all these fake like people and got free credits to like access emails of like top corporate people, right? Nice. And one of the people we were looking around at who to hit up to sponsor this festival on Rottnest. And because one of my old clients in advertising was Bank West, I was like, oh, they've got like an advertising campaign at the moment called Happy Banking. So comedy, Happy Banking. Like, why don't we hit them up? Like, so we used that website to get the chairman and maybe like the head of marketing, and both of their names were David, right? So we wrote a letter up about this festival we were gonna be doing on Rottnest, and it started addressed to both of them, Dear Davids, right? Take the piss. We climbed all the way to the top of the R&I building, but we couldn't get in your office, so we came all the way. We were taking the piss. Anyway, the next day, I think Lee got a call at like 5:30 in the morning from some unknown number. And he's not someone that wakes up at 5:30. Yeah. This is the old days. He was probably expecting to wake up at 10:30. Some American guy calls him, hey, is this Lee? Like, I got this letter about this festival on Rottnest. It sounds great. I'm going to be in Perth. So this guy was also going to be, he's normally on the East Coast, was going to be in Perth like that week. So he goes, I want to meet you in Subiaco on the Thursday. Can you put a proposal together for this festival? Now, to Lee's credit, he busted his ass off. He's the accountant, he's a number cruncher. Yep. But he put together this proposal for funding for what they would get and what they'd receive. I probably chipped in. I can't remember how much involvement I had. But there was like maybe two amounts. It was like, hey, if you give us this amount, we can do this amount, we can do that. And we pitched, and they came back and they go, okay, so as part of the sponsorship, we're going to sponsor a competition, a bit like a raw style competition, but for the more established people. So think about your best headliners and MCs from 2009 in a competition. So it's not the sort of open micers. So there was going to be a competition that kind of happened, and then the best people got to go to Rottnest, and they competed for $5,000 and a national tour around Australia. Pretty good prize for 2009. So Bankwest basically, to be the sponsor, it was called Best of the West. They gave us $30K, which at that time we were like, yeah, 30 grand. And we basically, the festival had sponsorship from Rottnest Island, nothing crazy. They must have only gave us like maybe 10 or 15, but at the time it was a lot.
Yeah.
we had the Bank West money, and yeah, we basically put this festival together, and we had Tame Impala headline the music, and they were kind of popping off. So we had a comedy competition that happened on the island. We had Tame Impala. We had a comedy film festival, which also I think, can't remember if there was a prize money for the funniest one, and it went off. Like we had this really successful event. We're maybe 27, and we were on our way. So I think just early on, we had like a lot of runs on the board early that were just kind of...
Especially something that size. That's like a...
Number-wise, it was a 3-day event. So people rocked up on the Friday and they stayed up until the Sunday evening. It was pretty affordable. So Rottnest Island jacked down all the prices. And I think the ticket was maybe like a couple of $100 for like 3 nights.
Fuck.
Yes.
That is cheap.
And I think the reason we could do that, because we got sponsorship, we could kind of go, hey...
Subsidise shit.
Okay, we pay Tame Impala, we pay the comedians, the prize money competition. So it put us in a really good position. But I think through all of it, it's easy for me to remember those days and go, oh, that was the wild party days and whatever else. But we actually worked, and everything that we did, even going back to that PowerPoint presentation about the first gig, it was all properly kind of thought out. And I think having myself as marketing and Lee as kind of operations and accounting, it was just like a good synergy of like skill sets. And I think that idea of, see when the security of life is pulled away from you, and we were young at the time, we didn't have commitments, I think that's just the best time to do things.
Yeah. If you're willing to be like, we're going for it in the broke period,
yeah,
that's the best.
Yeah. You've basically you've got your part-time job. I would have been doing maybe JB Hi-Fi. He might have been working at like the Old Swan Brewery. So you've got your money to pay your bills, have a good time, and so that went off really well. And I guess that was kind of running gigs, and that particular festival ran from 2009 to 2017. I only did it to 2015, which was the best year.
Ended on a high.
But one really important thing, which I hope will be of interest to any of the promoters or the budding, producers. This is the biggest thing that all event people screw up on, and I'm glad we did it early. So the second Rotto Fest, we're like, how do we outdo ourselves? How do we outdo ourselves? It's got to be better. It's got to be bigger, all that kind of stuff. So the second year, 2010, we wanted to improve everything, production values, all this kind of stuff. And I think Bank West definitely got scared off by comedy. So they weren't coming back for round 2.
Oh.
They misjudged what happy banking and what a comedian dropping F-bombs and C-bombs.
So you got it. They got in early before the internet really...
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention, they gave us the money for the first one, but once they found out how crass comedy could be, they actually asked to be taken off all the branding. So we got... Some people know this. We got $30,000 for free.
Because they were like, yeah.
And basically... It was swept under the carpet.
That's the best.
It was swept under the carpet, man. Like, here's the thing that happened, right?
Yeah.
Anytime subsequently that we tried to reach out to Bank West, I think some heads muster roll or someone got severely reprimanded for not, checking into that $30,000. And I don't think they really wanted it to be known publicly, go in the media. But anyway, we got $30,000 for free.
Surprised they didn't make you sign like an NDA or something after that.
Yeah, I think it was almost like they were good people, and I think there's a difference between a person versus when they're being the employee at Bank West. So see the person you meet and you have a beer with them that could be the one getting in trouble. They're different people.
Yeah.
They've got different concerns. So the second year that we did it, we increased to cover the lack of sponsorship and all the extra amazing things we wanted to do. We increased the ticket price. Just say, for example, it was $200 the first year. The second year, I think we brought up to like $260.
So not even a big jump.
But
double or nothing.
It was the point where within a price, what's the word? when it was enticing for young people our age to spend the weekend in Rottnest, we had hit a point where the price was more challenging. So the second year that we did the Rotto Fest gig, we didn't screw it from an experience point of view. Everyone that went, the only people that screwed up were me and Lee, right? So we basically ran the gig, everyone had a great time, and then afterwards we're like, oh man, we've both lost 15 grand each, right? And at the time, man, we were living kind of poor part-time jobs and having a good time. Losing 15 grand with no intention to go back to corporate world, that was a huge kind of moment.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a do or die. It was like, okay, we need to seriously look at everything we screwed up. And one of the cool things at that time, do you remember Drum Media? It's the equivalent of Express.
Yeah.
So some of the cats that worked there, they really enjoyed Rotto Fest and kind of liked what we're doing. And they go, look, we'll be happy to have a chat with you guys and give you some suggestions. So we did our audit on all the things we screwed up in the second year internally between me and Lee. And then there was good people on the scene that kind of sat and said, hey, you guys don't need to be edgelords with the music. Like the stuff to attract the music crowd over, just go party vibes.
Yeah.
You know, go fun stuff. Like don't go too edgy on the music. Just make it a bit more accessible. So we got some really good advice, and you know, even people going, hey, your artwork on the second year, your artwork wasn't as good, and you had like, there was comments in the blurb that made it seem like you didn't need the support of people. I can't remember what it was, but the greatest thing about screwing up early is learning. So if you double down and go, oh, we're going to make the third one even better, or we're going to max out a credit card.
It's gonna happen.
So I think the great thing is
you're gonna trip up at some point.
It was either, hey, this is it done, and we're going to have to go back to our sort of corporate jobs, or some serious lessons to kind of learn. And we restructured it. And the third year, from memory, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly sure we had Ronnie Chang and Matt O'Kine there that year. So we just took stock of everything and rejigged the festival. And yeah, I honestly reckon losing that 15 grand, this is all touch wood. I haven't actually personally screwed up a gig financially since.
You haven't?
No. And I've been that's 2010 to 2025. Honestly, man, like that was such a bad period because I was like, I was getting those, those calls. I don't know if it's ever happened to you. I was getting calls. We're expecting a repayment on this fifth, like those little calls. And,
I've been there.
And
you're
in your party vibes, man. And you're drinking in your party, and you get this call on a Friday, and you haven't really told anyone else in your life that you're 15 grand in debt, and you're getting these kind of chasing calls. Anyway,
I've been in that spot with 800 grand in debt.
You know what? It's not. Look, I really have a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion for people in that situation. See the feeling of being chased for money. It's a helplessness, isn't it?
If you can get through it, there's just like such a
builder,
just a skill level. You're like, oh, it's not the end of the world.
Yes.
Like it's like you can be like, I have no money. I have no idea how I'm getting money. I'm totally fucked.
Yeah.
I owe disgusting.
It's a reality check, isn't it?
You're like, what am I going to do? And then you get through it and you're like, oh, it's doable.
Yes.
It's not the end of the world.
I'm sure you would have had to break it down into components and just not look at the big thing and go, okay, we just polished off 20 here, a little win. You just got to put your head down.
It was more just like, all right, how do I fucking manage that and not lose everything? How do I push this away? And you can just you figure out how to maneuver around the financial system.
Wow.
Where you're like, how long can I hold that one off for? Like, how can I get away with that for fucking 3 months?
So I think you've been in a way, I think mine is small fries, but at the time, relative to the life, 15 grand seemed like so much.
15 is still heaps. If you've burnt it and you're like,
and you
fuck!
and you don't, and in that era, you don't have it, and you still want to have a good time and party and go out and do all that stuff. So
I know people have done it with 5 and 10 on gigs, and they're like, fuck, but they're like, I still want to do this, and I've fucked up so bad on that, but I know the mistake now.
As long as you learn and you kind of move on, you're sweet. And I think maybe what it kind of... So what some of the risks that we took in that second year was, I think we paid like... This is crazy and maybe embarrassing, but we wanted it like a big name to host one of the comedy events on the island. I'm fairly sure Token... The only person we get was Merrick Watts, but he was hot at the time. He has just done radio, and we didn't know that... Like, we weren't stupid, but I don't think we were savvy enough to know that he wasn't a proper comedian. Now, we're not saying he's not funny and he's not like a good kind of MC character, but I think at that time we didn't kind of quite understand the difference.
He'd been off the circuit.
Yeah. So I think, I'm fairly sure, if I'm not mistaken, we might have paid 10 grand for him. And in this era, See Token, the management company, they still exist. I've got a great relationship with them. I think in that time, Century didn't really exist, and there was less competition from management companies, and they were playing a very kind of take it or leave it with the whole of Australia. They were a little bit more brutal with their prices, like, no, it's 10, and we weren't stupid ever, but I don't think we kind of quite knew we didn't also understand market rates. We were just figuring out market rates of what to pay because there's no sheet. You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So we had to figure it out
by asking questions. You almost people that don't want to answer.
You have to figure it out by getting rejected. You go, how about? I'm just making these figures up. What about just say if you put an offer in for Will Anderson back at the time, you go, we got 10, too low, and then you start to kind of you have to, because a lot of the understanding of that you don't really kind of know, but then after a while you look back at it and you're like, man, like that was a lot. How much kind of value did it add? But my point was, I think then you kind of realize, I think the 10 grand for him, we never really made that mistake again when we had kind of acts. We always, the whole way through comedy, paid people well. So just say, for example, if we had other people in subsequent years, like your Dave Callens, your Greg Fleets, everyone got paid great, but we just didn't have 10 grand.
Yeah.
They might have been like, hey, come for the weekend, you got to do this, it's a couple of grand, you get accommodation, and all that. So I think after screwing up so much on over-capitalising, you just kind of pull things in. And there's that fine line, though. See when you see the point where you pull back too much, and
become a stingy cunt.
See, once the customers know that the event doesn't look the same, you're screwed.
Yeah.
See that inkling? There's a fine where if you pull the cost back, but no one kind of clicks too much. But if you start pulling things and cutting out stages, the event's done. And I think without going into it too much, I think towards the end of that festival, this is when I wasn't involved, to try and make it viable, there was a little bit of that, hey, how do we kind of like cut things back to make it viable? And after a while, you're like, I think punters kind of look around and go, this is not the same event anymore because this thing's not happening here.
I think 2017, 2018, 2016 to 2019, that whole period, everything died.
It did. I'm trying to think.
It was the period of death for Perth.
Do you know what? I think, so the first era of me running, this actually could tie into it because a lot of things started going south around that time. So I wrapped up doing stuff in Perth late 2017. Now, around that time, I decided that we just weren't properly being funded for the Roto gig. I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. They're not getting my time and effort for what they're funding. Screw the good times. I know what my value is. I'm done. But then at the same time, we'd created a festival, a Fringe World hub in Freo, right? And we were getting funded for that. And around the same time, like, funding was being pulled there. So you know what? Look, I think that you are right. At the end of the first year of me doing comedy, I think the boom was over in Perth. I think at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, WA's credit rating got pulled back. The whole place was going to shit. So I think we went through this amazing time, and then people weren't going out as much. A lot of the funding was kind of being cut. So I think the first era kind of died a natural death because the whole entertainment industry or events was kind of struggling.
I think it's everything. Like, everything was kind of just...
I think what it was. There was something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the GFC because that happened 2008, 2009.
So house prices from 2016 to 2020
yeah,
slowly went down a little bit.
Yes.
Right? And the prices by the start of 2020, before COVID hit, were just starting to go back up.
Yeah.
I fucking thought that this shit was going to happen in 2018. I was like, 2018 is going to go back up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, why is it still not moving? It was just in this spot, the same spot it was in 2012.
Yeah.
Everything we're like, how are we like 8 years by and we're at a spot where it was the same price? It shouldn't be here anymore. What the fuck's going on? Just went so fast. And then no one was just like, it was just there. And then you looked around at everything else, every festival, every big gig.
Yeah.
No one was coming here anymore. Everyone was like, there's just no cash about.
Yeah, there was something really kind of... Yeah, there was some... Things were folding. It definitely played into, like, my feelings at the time, was just like, you know what, the Frio thing's kind of done. I'm not doing the Roto Fest thing anymore. It was just, like, kind of the end of, like, yeah.
Just got slow for everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult the most of the time making this kind of fun stuff kind of work. But when all the funding's being pulled and people are tightening their belts, and the first thing, as we all know, that kind of gets see with council funding and things like that, the first thing that gets yanked is the arts.
Yeah.
And the ironic part of it all, that's the thing that people kind of need the most.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People need escapism. The performers need to kind of do their thing. So yeah, I guess the first part of the comedy journey was running Rotofest gig. I was running comedy gigs maybe like once a month at like Mojo's, one at Yaya's, which is in that weird... Do you know that...
Yaya's is Asabun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we used to just do monthly stuff, and that was kind of the format of the gigs. In that same kind of era, we ran 3-on-3 basketball tournaments down at McCallum Park. So we were doing heaps of different stuff. And like when I look back at that particular era, man, with a lot of humility, man, we were so far ahead of the game of all the things that we were doing and kind of push. And I think in a way, a lot of it still continues on, but my new approach is probably a little bit more slick, less party vibe, and just
big, massive gigs.
Theaters and but a lot of the good stuff that we did was definitely that I think there's something about being hungry.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like we were just kind of like wanting to do interesting.
What can we do? What can we do? What can we do?
Yeah, and even it's such a sidestep to be. We were running 3-on-3 basketball tournaments as comedy promoters. So I think we were just really kind of, and the thing that's a little bit disappointing, and it's not a regret, it just is what it is. If the funding was there, we'd still be doing those great things. So for example, we were doing that with the town of Victoria Park. And at the time, it was the biggest 3-on-3 competition in Australia. There's a thing in Melbourne called the Prahran Summer Jam, and it's really good. It's on one court. We were using 6 half courts and running kind of competitions all on a Saturday. And eventually, because it was so popular, I had some leverage to lobby that council to install about $100,000 worth of lights down at those courts.
Oh, I remember. So next to Vic Park Bowl.
Yeah, so if anyone drives past those basketball courts on Canning Highway, those lights, like, I lobbied to get them there. So as long as I don't... That's my only relic in Perth. Like, I don't have a statue, those lights, so just leave them up.
I've got my hands in quite a few skate parks, so...
So...
Not that anyone cares.
Tell me, do you actually?
Yeah. I help fucking design a few skate parks. I've been on the committee for pretty much every skate park that's in the Rockingham area. I've been on the committee to help that fucking get built.
So you must know Matt DeKoning.
Yeah.
So he built his company. Is he one of the people?
Yeah, Skate Sculpture.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he was meant to come on the pod last year, but busy people.
That's so cool. You know what? He's someone I know as... I met him more so through the filmmaking.
Film side, yeah.
I love it. He's been around maybe the whole time I've been doing stuff. I love the fact that this guy's found a niche and he's getting paid to build skate parks.
Oh yeah, and they're building good skate parks, and like
man, I follow some of the stuff, and we know these are getting done in rural areas where we know that is such a major outlet for those kids. Otherwise, you know, like look, I don't mind if they smoke weed and skate. That's not a problem. But when there's absolutely nothing, they end up hitting the glass.
Man, a park is such a fucking massive benefit out in the middle of nowhere. Like a skate park, I grew up at a skate park.
Yeah.
Like that was, and I've got a few friends that like that. I've got friends 10 years younger than me. I was hanging out with fucking a 9-year-old when I was 19.
Yes.
And you're like, that's weird.
But that's kind of like your mentor,
But
like
that's
a big
skateboarding.
brother.
Yeah, but that's skateboarding.
Definitely a community. I've got to look. I think now one of the cool things when you've been around like for quite a while, I love just seeing the people that are doing good things that have kind of stuck it out. But I don't know if it's easier to say it and then just kind of make it like seem, but it's kind of obvious. Like even example, like see like a famous Sharon, right? Bonnie, she's been around the whole time.
Yeah.
But the work ethic was always there. So, you know, there was kind of a vision and a drive. And even you sort of look at people like Julian. Do you know Julian Canny?
No.
Okay, so he's someone that was around the comedy scene, but he's kind of now sidestepped into doing like community development and craft workshops and op shops and just kind of stuff like outside of comedy. But I think one of the coolest things being around for like that sort of, you know, 15 years in Perth, seeing the people that have kind of made, it's so deep, we know, man, like for anyone
It's small.
it's so hard to make things work in this city. I'm giving like no illusions because let's be honest, I really don't believe the city in a way wants to resist change. Everything is about like kind of keeping it the same, little bits of tweaks. So anyone,
It's that NPC thing. It's just work.
yeah,
There's a lot of just work here.
It's frustrating. And like, see when people try and go, oh, you're not supposed to be. Yes, you are. It's a human emotion. You like if you do get I definitely get frustrated by things here, and you're allowed to.
That's what creates change.
Exactly. So see the people that are all kind of la-di-da, it's all got to be positive all the time, and we all hug each other, and we do, you know, and people do that, and they do get outcomes that are great. But I definitely channel frustration. And something will really annoy me for a while, and I'll kind of push it as far as I can kind of get it, and then it'll be, okay, we've got to find a way around this. And I think one of the things that we were going to potentially chat about was comedy's place in WA. And that's one of those kind of frustrating things that I'm experiencing at the moment. We know we've got an amazing comedy scene, we've got great talent, and it's not properly being supported, not by people, but by decision makers that allocate funding, venues throughout the state. And I guess what it's, instead of being frustrated, it's kind of finding your way around and choosing the battles you can kind of win.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's so for any of the listeners, basically my work at the moment in comedy behind the scenes, when I returned to being involved in comedy, I didn't want to come back in and be a club promoter. I feel like it's being done well by so many other operators. There's Comedy Lounge happening, there's Oasis, there's lots of emerging open mic nights. Doesn't need that. And I don't want to do that. I've done all that stuff. So my position was to kind of come in and do something a little bit different. You know, big showcase gigs that put the talent in a great venue with good production. But then the thing that folks don't necessarily see is I've also been kind of lobbying behind the scenes to get more support for WA comedy. So the way that I'm looking at comedy, a lot of the comedians and people that go to shows, they might be seeing it on a micro level. And I'm not saying micro because it's less important, but they're rocking up to gigs, doing their set, saying hello and kind of networking that way. When I sort of came in, I sort of zoomed out and was trying to sort of see where comedy was in the state relative to other arts in the state.
Well, even relative to other spaces in the world is a place that I always try and look at it. So
yes.
You go like, I try and say to people, like, we don't matter. And it's not because we just don't have this, the state doesn't matter, the country doesn't matter, so we don't matter. That's pretty much it, right? Like you go, if it's not TV comedy in Australia, there's maybe 3 comedians that are selling theatres. Like Luke Kidgell sells theatres.
Jim Jeffries.
Oh, I don't include him as Australian. He started as, he is Australian.
Yeah, but he's been away.
But he came up in the UK.
Right.
Whereas I mean like...
You mean the ones actually...
Fully started here, stayed here, are still here.
Yeah.
Like Jeffries is here now, but he started in the UK.
Yeah, and even Tim Minchin started here, but I think he got a lot of his leg up.
But he's even TV.
Yeah.
Like Jeffries is TV now, but he wasn't at the start.
Yes.
But like Luke Kidgell, Frenchie...
Yeah.
They're selling theatres based off the shit they've done outside it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not the country gives a fuck. They're like, some people will look at like Frenchie, Isaac Butterfield's another one, and be like, these guys are dickheads. And you're like, but they're the only comedians that are doing it inside the parameters they can inside our country. And you go, you look at anyone in America, you go to a state.
Yeah.
And you go to an area like Chicago, there's about 50 fucking comedians selling theatres.
Yes.
New York, there's 200 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's all spots, whereas here we have, like Melbourne, there's still heaps of club comedians that can sell decent gigs and sell out rooms and sell out clubs.
Like Will Anderson and Hughesy and...
They're still TV comedians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's I think like the darker, the weirder.
Right, you were thinking more the edgier stuff. I hear what you're saying.
Well, just like the comedians that aren't TV.
Well, that's basically anyone with a social media following.
Yeah, but you have to build that yourself.
Yes.
Whereas
so that would be like a Neil Kolhatkar, but he's probably like a following level down. But I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I know the types, yeah.
Yeah, he's still selling rooms.
Yeah.
He's like not theatres. There's only a few doing the theatres.
Yeah.
But then you look at America, they can sell theatres fucking everywhere. Each city has its own spot.
Yeah.
Like Melbourne builds a bunch of room dudes, and then TV, you can become theatres from there.
Yeah.
But if you're at that like normal level without TV, it's very, very difficult.
I mean, the way that I look at it, if that's that level, I think that the Perth level and what it's kind of accepted is even worse. So when I sort of zoomed out and kind of took a look at what was going on, I was like, okay, well, all these other industries within the arts are getting funded, right? So theatre's getting properly funded, music's getting properly funded by the DLGSC, and they do have a tab. Comedy is a thing. It's not like they don't allow it to. So it's a token you can apply for comedy funding. But I think I always knew that they didn't prefer comedy. It's the lesser art. It's not la-di-da. They can't get any status out of it. I knew that back in the early era from 2009 to 2017. But coming back with a more mature approach to running the gigs and a more professional brand. Like WA Comedy sounds so much more reputable than Vulture Culture, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a 40-year-old man, so there's a difference between dealing with someone that wants to do it seriously or someone wants to work hard, play hard. So when I came back into it and legitimately said, hey, I want to do some better things to level up this industry, we're obviously going to need some funding to kind of do it. When I went in and properly, legitimately, with all my background and the support of Colin Ebsworth, we put together like 3 different applications for funding, and they were tip-top, graphic designed. There's no question of a doubt on the caliber of the applications. When they kind of came back, this is for WA Comedy Week, we got just continual rejections, and the sort of feedback was dumb stuff like, what was it? We question your ability to have enough talent. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to run an event, a festival, to showcase and improve talent, and you guys are supposed to be representatives of WA making it better.
And you're just going, we don't give a fuck about...
You're questioning your own people and the ability of them to do something. So that was a red flag where I'm like, they don't know what they're talking about. And then the other one...
well, they don't have any faith. And they don't want to build
I don't think they understand. I think they believe the myth that there is not really that much comedy in Perth, and comedy... these are NPC people, right? Yeah. They believe that comedy is exclusive to Sydney and Melbourne, and that whatever is happening here is of little merit, right? So the next one that led me to understand that they have no idea, they had this other stream called the CBD Revitalisation Scheme, right? That was to get everything rolling back during COVID. So when we got rejected twice for a lesser one, we thought, okay, look, WA Comedy Week are running events from a Monday to a Sunday, right? So we're running stuff in the city, activating it when the place would be dead. We know the city's dead except for Friday and Saturday. So we're like, okay, we're going to be programming all these different things. It's going to be at the Rechabite and all different types of shows, solo shows, galas, workshops, all this kind of stuff. When some of the feedback for that rejection came back, one of them, which I'll never forget, comedy already happens in the city. And I'm like, man...
What do you mean comedy already happened? What, Fringe?
So they would have just been probably thinking that and maybe Comedy Lounge, right? Which are both valid offerings. But what they were basically... The naivety of not understanding that we were programming a festival and that's different from a comedy club...
Yeah, but even the comment, comedy already happened?
That was...
So we're all just sad now?
So
We'll just give up.
So here's the funny thing. So just say if you were like programming like a jazz festival or something.
Jazz already happened.
Yeah. Or it was just so naive to the point like, okay, so
that is such a retarded comment.
So the assessor that's assessing this comment is part of the mindset problem of not understanding comedy. And you could actually go, but
that's not even understanding human existence.
Well, I just think that they came in, so we had this proposal that explained what we were trying to do and address all these things for them to come back. And so there's a couple of ways to look at it. I think that it's a pie chart. So one of them is them being ignorant. They're NPCs that don't understand comedy and believe it's a Melbourne thing and we don't have the talent to do it, which is wrong. The other thing...
If we don't have it, we build it. That's
and that's what the whole... It was.
That's what funding's for.
Exactly. So the other thing that I also kind of believe could play into it, and let's be real, like the way these people think, I almost think part of it was comedy is kind of like a lower kind of risky thing. It's not as good. So I just think there was a whole...
I do understand that.
Yeah.
Like, comedy is risky if you've got brand. There is a lot of people that... Like, that's why it's harder for certain people to sponsor podcasts and whatnot. Like, you want untapered rules.
Yeah.
Do whatever the fuck you want. And they're like, do we really want to give you money? Like,
I think it's kind of a little bit... It's understandable but unwarranted when you're basically putting something that's a little bit more formal. WA Comedy Week is not like rock and roll party.
I think it just depends on what their picture of what comedy is as a whole.
Yeah, totally.
Like, if they just go... If they've seen someone like Bill Hicks, they might be like, fuck comedy. You know, they might be like...
I want to protect my job.
Yeah, they're like, this is going to fucking end in bad things.
When that rejection came through, one of my friends, who's a good guy, he runs another activity that got that same funding, right? And I support my friend, and my friend tries really hard, and I went and checked out my friend's event where he got, the money. Now...
Don't want to say what the event was?
I just think I don't want to like basically take away what he was doing.
Okay, yeah.
But I guess the gist is he tried really hard and put on a good event, but there was no one really in terms of spectators. So me kind of realizing that I got rejected for an event that was successful and was risk-free, I'm just like, man, like you guys were completely wrong. And I've seen the sort of things that you funded, and although that was a quality event, you wouldn't have hit your KPIs in terms of people attending, economic impact.
Do you think it's a matter of cherry picking what they enjoy? Because I don't believe that government corporations are anything but fucking scumbags in any way. And they're all out to self-serve as much as they possibly can.
It's a status thing. They want to get as much out of it, glory for themselves.
Not even just that, just like, how can we get money from this? How can we get what we want? Like, I mean, as corrupt as I would probably be if I was a politician, but I'd never want to be one.
Yeah.
I'd do it, obviously. I'd be like, I'm doing this because I like this. Yes. Fuck you cunts. It would be like, I'm going to put fucking Soundwave back on. We're funding that.
You are right. They do pick the things that, and it's contrary to what their job should be, but they do things that they want to do. Here's a prime example. Basil Zemplis,
he must hate comedy.
Well,
he'd be the first person to pick on.
And he should lean in.
Yeah.
So he basically, something went really successful in the world, and then he goes, I think that Perth should have like the biggest DJ concert ever, and it should be on Langley Park, right? Now, fast forward a year. I'm fairly sure the event wasn't City of Perth sponsored, but there might have been some like ways to make it work.
Was this
the Fatboy Slim thing?
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that's a bad event, but basically,
I thought it was Fred again.
That as well. So all those sort of things. He wants to do that because he sees that that's a status thing.
Oh, it's because he's also in the background coked off his tears.
Yeah. He wasn't.
I've seen them videos.
Yeah, so they do pick what they want, but I guess the frustrating thing for me, to some degree, that same year where we did the first WA Comedy Week, a couple of the actual marketing girls from Tourism WA actually came to the event, and they had a great time. They were hanging around afterwards, going, "Oh, this was so good."
It's like the same as for headliners in Mandurah. There was the Mandurah Shire people there, and they loved it.
Yeah, so basically they had a great time, and so you know that you're putting on... They came to like a Q&A, which was Peter Rosethorn, Roe McManus and Janelle Koenig talking about their comedy careers. And they had a great time. So I guess the frustrating thing for me is when you know that you're doing tip-top quality stuff, it is, look, I don't really, touch wood, I don't really have incidents at my events. It's kind of got to a point where it's pretty streamlined. I know the acts, I know what level of risks I'm taking, I know what I can get away with in each venue. So when you know that production value, staffing, marketing is tip-top and you're being rejected in your own state, look, I'll honestly say this, and I don't care what anyone says. The gigs that I've been putting on, whether they're purely by myself or the ones where I've collaborated with Paul Drager doing Crushes, the stuff I've done with Colin Ebsworth, or even the stuff back with Lee in the Day, the gigs that I've run throughout my career will smoke most of the stuff happening in Melbourne and Sydney.
Yeah, because you're doing big gigs.
These guys roll over, and just even back in the day when we were naive and sort of doing Rottofest, they were like, oh man, this is great. We hold some of the gigs up in a pedestal. Oh, look, Melbourne's great. It's great. We go to the clubs, man. See the stuff that everyone holds up on some big pedestal as being the great things. Dude, I've done way more interesting things.
Melbourne's just got a lot of smaller.
Yes.
Melbourne's a lot of smaller.
I think it's a prestige for us. It's almost like, because we're like the small guys in the little kind of area, it's almost like going to the Coliseum, going to Melbourne. Look, the Melbourne stuff's fine, but... And it is, they're not doing anything interesting. They're just club gigs. I mean...
Yeah, there's just lots of them.
To be honest, with all humility, right? There's not really that much. But the headliners gigs that I've been busting out for the last 3 years, they're better than the club gigs that are happening in Melbourne.
But they're 500,000 seat gigs, some of them.
The biggest one so far is the WA Comedy All-Stars one at Heath Ledger, which is probably about 500.
Yeah.
But look, here's the thing.
But a 500-seat gig is huge.
Yeah, and I say this with all, and I want to say this as a way to kind of, I suppose, inspire some of the other comedians on the scene. This is the mentality that I'm trying to wipe out. See the inferiority complex of small thinking and Perth kind of bubble. That's what I'm trying to break through. So I don't care. It just if someone decides that for the rest of their days, for their family circumstances and them loving living in Perth, they're going to live in Perth. Hey, do all your gigs, go to Edinburgh Fringe, Sydney. But when you're putting on gigs, don't ever go in with the mindset that you're doing a lesser gig or it's not as good as the ones happening in Melbourne. You could do way better stuff. We don't need... Basically, we're just people, and there's buildings and their venues. Provided that you're driven enough and you do the work, we can be doing way more interesting stuff. And I guess the whole idea of me trying to level up WA comedy and kind of get us the proper support, it's to really kind of just raise things up. So, for example, we have amazing theatres throughout WA, right, in these regional centres, and they hit those numbers that you're talking about, 500,000, and there's probably a good 8 to 10 of them dotted northwest all the way down to Albany, right? Now, historically... What's happened, the Melbourne Comedy Festival comes into those venues. They get paid by the venues a buyout fee. And they put those gigs on and they roll through the whole state. And that's the one comedy gig that those theatres will do a whole year, right? Now that people like myself have leveled up and there's other people starting to do bigger events, this is our state. These are government-run venues. We should not have difficulty getting in. So, for example...
Should be easy for us to do the same thing.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I would hate to basically... This is the way that I'm trying to frame it to some of these venues when I'm negotiating. Guys, I'm not telling you to pick us and not do Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Do them both.
Hey, the comedy is that big that's rolling into WA, I think, annually around May. Program the equivalent, whether it's one of my gigs or someone else that's doing a 500 type gig around sort of the later part of the year. And here's the thing where I'm having trouble, and this is part of the struggle which I'm trying to break through. So I know, for example, I'm trying to negotiate to do a gig that's happening in a similar one to Melbourne Comedy Roadshow. Now, I just said, guys, they're nice people. Can I just ask up front, is this a buyout deal with Melbourne Comedy Festival? And they were really candid, really nice. They go, yes, it is, but we can guarantee, because it's been run over a number of years, that we can cover overheads, we can take that kind of risk. And I go, look, I completely understand your position, but the arrangement that I have to do, I have to pay venue hire, I have to pay the tech, to bring, say, 5 to 6 comedians down, I've got to do accommodation and transport. So I'm in this weird conundrum with this particular venue. I haven't quite said no that I'm not going to do it, but when I kind of looked at it, and I shouldn't be put in this position, I should be able to be able to do my gigs as easy as the Melbourne ones. I looked at it and I said to myself, if I'm being given a situation where it's actually probably cheaper for me to go and do a gig in Melbourne, find a venue, do it as a headliner's gig, book acts in Melbourne that I kind of know, and some might be WA people, might throw like a bone to like, the ones that live there. It's easier and probably less risky for me to go do a gig in Adelaide than to go to Albany.
It's ridiculous.
So that's the sort of stuff, and these are good people, and they work under, so the organisation that runs these venues like Heath Ledger, they've got Arts Culture Trust, all the staff are amazing, so I don't want to, there's no kind of like big issue with the stuff. They've got doctrine that they have to, it's state government, they have to follow. So my issue that I'm trying to negotiate, and it's actually in that petition that I put forward, it's not just funding support. So for example, I believe that reduction of venue hire to make it easier for us.
Yeah.
And hey, look, I'm not going to be too self-centered and just think about comedy. If they want to extend this little rule to burlesque and fringy type things, great. But there should be a rule that venue hire for WA producers is half price or something like that, right? So cover all your staff. I know that you have to pay your tech guy, but see that flat fee of like $2,000 for like the venue hire or whatever. Just say it's $2,000 or $3,000. Make it $1,500. That takes all the risk away from me. I can use that money to put that into accommodation. It just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, and I think the way I think you should help to sell this is a perspective I'm going, if you half the price of this, you're helping the West Australian comedians get a following in Western Australia that builds their internet presence, that builds them bigger anyway. Because if they're coming from Melbourne, they're probably already getting watched on TV anyway.
Yeah.
They're probably like, oh yeah, they're big, we send them on TV. But the people that are coming down from WA could be doing the same fucking thing.
No shit.
And you're just putting him in front of the 500 to 1,000
Exactly.
people.
Because one thing that I realised about audiences, right? See all the cats that we kind of know that are starting to do good stuff in the club scene and whatever else. The moment that you put them in a bigger stage, the audience laughs like just as loud as they do to the touring Melbourne and Sydney acts. So, for example, if you put a Jill Cordner in a Heath Ledger, she slays in the clubs anyway, but she slays to the level that we see the big acts slay on those Melbourne comedy roadshow things. Now,
well, it's a connection thing. If you're in Melbourne, you're going to be doing more stuff, seeing with the right people.
Yeah.
If you're in Perth, you can still do it.
Yeah.
Like, look at Nikki Valentine at the moment over there just crushing it.
Yeah.
But it's like that thing of like, you've got to get over there and do it. It's not as easy for a Perth person to be over there as much as as someone who lives there.
Yes.
And it's like, do you have to migrate? Like, you have to disassociate everything to be there?
That's the thing, you shouldn't have to. And here's one thing that a lot of this knowledge that I put forward in that petition, which is on wacomedy.com, that's an easy way to go have a look at the petition. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realise, I'm a massive supporter of the live music scene. And, we chatted earlier, you love your music as well. Live music has millions of dollars allocated to make WA music scene kind of pop. And there's conferences and there's touring support and all that kind of stuff. Now, see what most people kind of think when they compare a comedian to like someone in a band. I think at the back of their mind, people go, oh, but like the people in bands, they have like the instruments and the gear and the funding kind of goes towards that and no, the funding that a musician gets to make it easier for them to tour to Melbourne or Sydney they're not allowed to use it for equipment.
It's just terrible.
So once you strip that little idea maybe in the back of your mind of the differences with equipment between a comedian, there actually is none. And I clarified that because I've had the support of WA Music, who are awesome. They're the ones getting the money.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about them is they support what we're doing. They could have so easily interpreted that. Well, they could have, because I mentioned in the petition that music gets all this. They could have easily gone, oh look, he's outing. It's all public knowledge, but They could interpret it as being a sour kind of thing, and oh fuck these guys, and they're bringing up this issue, and that's going to make us lose money. No, so the CEO actually met with me for a coffee. Big supporter, could see the mutual kind of alignment. He goes, hey, you guys that run comedy gigs and people like yourselves that perform in them, you make the live music venues viable because you're gigging at these same venues that we do music. So basically the way he interpreted, like having a healthier comedy scene kind of fits into keeping venues kind of operating as well.
If it's just music 24/7, people go, oh yeah, already seen a gig. You've got that variety.
Keeps it interesting. And look, a lot of the cool venues that comedy and music share, they will never give comedy the Friday and the Saturday, but they will, say for example, let like an open mic night or a emerging talent night happen on the Wednesday or Thursday. I mean, that's kind of how the gigs that I used to run, like at Mojo's, we'd never get like a Friday or Saturday. They've got like Tame Impala coming in a pond. They give us like the Wednesday. So they were really supportive. The point that I kind of had, see any of those cats like Nikki Valentine, Rory, or anyone that's Joe White, I guess they're not really here as much. Even
it's because I had to leave.
Yeah, okay, well, exactly, which proves our point. So anyone that's trying to make... Okay, here's an example. So you see Grant Mushet and Dave Hughes. They're kind of at that point where they've done their sort of club stuff around Perth and they're looking to kind of stretch their wings, go to Brisbane, go to Melbourne, and that kind of... It's good for their career. They interact with comedians of different calibre, all that kind of... If they were a musician, they would be able to properly get that covered in terms of flights, accommodation, all that kind of stuff.
And for a comedian, it's cheaper, realistically.
It's only one person.
Yeah.
So the fact that these...
And it's not luggage.
Well, there is... Yeah,
it's like a band's luggage is expensive.
So the fact that basically these guys, the reason they don't do it as much is because they look that they've got to do their flight return, they've got to do their accommodation, they've got to buy their food. So, and let's be real, a lot of the gigs those guys are doing, right, we'd probably be honest to say they're either breaking even or losing money. I reckon some of them are probably just doing it to further their career, but they might be taking a hit.
There is big comedians that have massive online followings that I've spoken to, and they're like, I'm not breaking even on this.
Yeah,
I'll come and do the gig. I love it. It builds. I know what the future holds.
Yes.
But it's like...
It's an investment.
It's literally an investment in yourself, and you're like, but you're already there.
Yeah.
You're like, fucking hell.
Particularly the Perth. We're so... I see if you're living... Once you're based in either Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane, see those flights basically down the whole coast, you're sorted. You're doing like little $150 return things. See, for us, anytime you want to do like...
$300 minimum one way.
Yeah. And it's just... Okay, so that's... If we do it at that price, right? So you've got $600 flights. If you're not crashing on someone's couch, a lot of them do, but just say if you're not, you got to do your accommodation.
You become resourceful.
If you're one of the cats that's a little bit older and you're like, fuck, I'm not doing that anymore. I need like a room. That's a couple $100. You got to do your food, whatever else. Just say the gigs, you're not going to get, at their level, they're like support acts. They're getting probably support fees, a couple $100.
Yeah.
So
you're not getting $1,000 back.
They're losing money.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is, I want to, in terms of leveling up things, I want comedians being able to have access to a funding pool for comedy that makes the touring bit... And guess what? I think this is actually probably more appealing to these bodies than the interstate travel. I want to make... Because see regional flights, man. Like...
insane.
So I want to be able to get our guys and girls basically going, hey, we want to go do the top end, and we want to go do Matt Dan Theatre, which is in Port Hedland. It's like a 300-seater, whatever else. If those flights can be covered, first of all, then you're entertaining communities that don't get anything besides maybe Melbourne Comedy Festival once a year. You're building the capabilities of our own talent. These venues are kind of full. It's just such a win-win. And to be honest, there's no mistake. Like even my touring, right? When I really...
It's not even a big investment.
No.
It's fucking tiny.
So I can really, I get as far as Goldfields, which I've done once and went well, and then I'm sort of southwest. See, for me personally, once in a blue moon, can I make it viable to do anything north? And it's generally like when a local council just say they get some funding, they go, look, we're going to do all the flights and whatever else. But there are that many kind of venues. I think there's either one in Karratha called Red Earth, which is like... So see these regional places. I think it surprises people. They're the equivalent. They don't look as pretty, but capacity-wise, they're as good as Heath Ledger Theatre.
Yeah.
You roll in, but the only talent in terms of the comedy scene that are getting to use it, it's a Melbourne Comedy Festival roadshow. Why, in my mind, why can't it be us? And I guess people listening might go, but you know, you can kind of, this is where I'm hitting the brick wall. I'm doing all the right things in terms of trying to make these things happen, and there's just like no interest. And
because a comedian doesn't look at it. I've heard some people's perspective on this petition.
Yeah.
And I don't see it the same way, obviously.
They don't tell me, you know why? Because I book gigs.
Yeah. I know. But it's like, why would you want to sign that? Who's going to get the funding? And it's like, who gives a fuck who gets the funding if it means more gigs?
It's a funding pool.
Yeah. But even that question is like, who gets it? You're focusing on some tiny thing going, maybe I'm not going to get it, so fuck it.
Yeah, I guess you know what, it really crossed my mind, the fact that comedians, because it is a very self-driven, you're a one kind of lone wolf thing, and I'm not saying that there isn't cases where there is community, but I think I'm aware of the fact that mindset is kind of like prevalent, like, hey, what's in it for me? And I think the biggest
I don't think I've got access to that, so fuck it.
Yeah, totally.
Which is dumb.
And you know what I tried to do with that as well, and maybe it's not that clear. So the funding that I'm petitioning for is not directly for me. I want them to create a funding pool that can be accessed by the comedians as well. Don't get me wrong, I want WA Comedy Week funded only because it's a damn good idea and it ticks so many of the boxes. So that's one of the things that I mentioned. But see all those little things.
But even getting theatres fucking half price, getting flights regional.
Totally. So I guess the pitch, and I totally get it, is say for example, if there was like a funding pool and Laugh Resort goes, hey, we want to do like a week long seminar of like professional development, I've got no fucking problem if they're the ones that applies and gets that money. So I think that the funding pool should basically it should be available. And to be honest, I'd have to break it up. There might be one. So for example, just say if they get their act together, Department of Local Government, whatever they're called, if they get their act together and go, okay, we've sat down, we give music $2 million. It's probably more. It's probably $3 million. Okay, comedy, it's probably 20% the size. And just say if they go, there's this funding pool, it's $350,000, $400,000 a year. That's the money, right? They break it up. There's one for like touring support, there's one for professional development, and maybe there's one for like production and marketing. They basically have, and they don't probably want to go crazy stuff, just have these three things. Basically, everyone has the same ability to go in and get it.
And apply for it.
And that's not really a big ask. I mean, here's my thing. It's not going to get any worse. The industry
nothing.
So all you've got to do is gain.
Yeah. That's how I see it. I go, if someone wants to try and get the government to chip in, why the fuck would you be like, no?
I tell you what part of it is as well, and I totally get it, and I'm not saying I'm not this way as well. I think it's a human nature thing. Because comedy and humans can be tribal, there's cliques, right?
Yeah.
So there's people within my sphere of influence and people I gig with. There's people from another group, and there's people from another group and that. And there's definitely there's healthy competition, there's mistrust, there's misunderstandings, all that kind of stuff. Now, here's the deal. I've been around in comedy since 2009, and I know that the industry overall has been rolling around in WA for like 3 decades. I'm 40 years old, and I just kind of had a look around, and I'm in a position where I can take the lead and responsibility. No one else is going to do it. Everyone else is going to have the idea of just going, oh, we don't really get funding. So I took it upon myself as going,
I can't think of anyone that wants to.
No, well, I was happy to do it because I've kind of delved around this and I've been kind of playing this. I'm just like, you know what? I've got the skill set to try and make this happen, or at least push. I'm not promising we'll get it, but I'm going to push this as hard as I can.
Maybe going for it, trying to make it
happen. So I guess, and what I've tried to do as this thing's been out there, give little updates. So, for example, if people just see, there's a petition and it's just going to go away. So when good things happen, you've probably seen on my social media, I'll give like a little update. Here's another great little update, just so people know things are progressing. So I reached out to the Performing Arts WA Award. That's happening in April. It covers I think music, opera, dance, and theatre. Right? Doesn't include comedy, right?
Yeah.
And a year ago, I asked them the question, hey, why isn't comedy included in your Performing Arts Awards? I didn't get like a reply. I did the petition.
It's not really a performing art.
Comedy is.
I think it sits in its own little spot. You know, like compared to like dancing and fucking theatre and all that.
Yeah.
Comedy's over here.
We want in those awards, man. We want
I agree.
We want some prestige.
It is this weird little spot.
I want it to be taken a bit more seriously and have its. I want it to get its due. And if the platform to sneak us in and start getting more attention, like if we don't exist, there's no white balls. We're not going to be treated. So the moment we get incorporated into that, I think doors open up. So
Do you think that on the scale of the way that they look at that stuff as prestigious?
They
right?
do. They're black sheep.
Yeah,
Crude.
Very much like this thing. And then they're like, these cunts are fucked. Like, in the most poshest way they could say it, you know? But that is like what is the basis of their like, what are we doing with that?
Well, the weird thing is, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think because comedy hasn't really put its hand up, it's been easier for them not to think about us. So sometimes, like, when I'm in battle mode, I'm like, oh, they're all against us, it's malicious. And then you just go, look, sometimes, like, it can just be apathy and them not really kind of thinking about us because we're often our own thing. But see the moment we sort of, I'll tell you this is my big thing.
It could, yeah, you could be on a point there, like, comedians are their own worst enemy.
Well, we know that. Yeah. That's why I'm the one that's doing the fucking
good point.
The lobby.
But it's like, they've, like, gone, no, we're too fucked up for that. We want to take the piss out of that, so let's not go near there. That could be the other factor.
I think the moment that's just say if we got to win, and there's like a category, right? And we know this. We know this. It's going to be your Sons of Fred, your Matt Storage, your Bogan, Shakespeare. It's going to be this. That's a bit more polished. Whatever else, that's probably going to be the eligible stuff. Even Jill Corden's crass as hell, but she's great and doing good stuff. She might look. So the moment we get brought in from the cold, right, and the industry overall. And the funding body starts seeing us as being brought in. See these things I'm telling you about, like the venues opening up?
Yeah.
The moment where the trust is built and go, hey, these guys are running these slick operations. Hey, they've got some crass material. They're lovely people. They're exercising the demons. So to let your viewers know the update on that, so they didn't reply to me for a year. And that just gave me the carte blanche that when I was doing my petition, I could acknowledge that they didn't include comedy, and they obviously got the email. So after a while that the petition was out, I was like, you know what? You have to give people the opportunity again just to see because I never found out what their position was. So I emailed them like 3 weeks ago after the petition was out, and I said, hey, I got a contact from the State Theatre that said to hit you guys up to ask the question. Didn't get a reply, so then I found another email on the website, and I got a reply from them today. And I actually know one of the people involved. Great guy. He's from Circuit West and is awesome anyway. He goes, let's have a chat. He goes, it hasn't normally happened. And equivalent types of award ceremonies in Melbourne and Sydney haven't. I think there's one that does comedy. I can't remember what state it was. It's called the Helpman. I think one does, but Perth doesn't. He goes, let's have a chat. So the great thing about that is, that could just go to a situation where it could happen for the next one, or it doesn't. But we've explored this thing, and the doors weren't closed, and the equivalent one of that was I reached out to Perth Festival. Perth Festival doesn't program comedy.
No, not at all.
It never has. And the great thing about them is
a lot of Perth Festival is imports, but
Perth Festival does have a high caliber of stuff, but there's also local stuff as well. And I seen their slogan, which was truth tellers, mischief makers. They had that painted on the side, projected on the side of the East Perth Power Station.
And no comedians.
And I'm just like, man, you know that thing where you go, like, I feel like when you go looking for a fight, you'll find. But when I seen the slogans, I'm like, you could not describe comedians any better. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then I was like, okay, left it alone for a little bit. Then I seen another slogan they had that said, question everything. Okay, I'm emailing the festival director and just asking them. And I did.
Did you steal this from a comedian's fucking...
I just asked. I said, hey, formal email. Hey, just wanted to know, you guys don't seem to program comedy. Is there any kind of reason? The festival director got back to me. It was very kind of thoughtful. It wasn't too like corporate or hardline. She goes, it really just depends on kind of because they've got like an artistic director that kind of creates. It's not just open access. They have,
Yeah.
Oh, look, we haven't. They mentioned, oh, we had Jen Fricker doing something. It must have been musical comedy. She used to be on Triple J, and then they said, oh, and there was this other thing where people got up. It was an open mic thing. I'm like, you were just trying to because there really wasn't comedy, was trying to find as many examples of where. So basically, there wasn't really comedy there. But the great thing is, she goes, look, I'd be happy to take a proposal. And the great thing, I'm really realistic. So even though that response was, I will take a proposal, I'm not naive enough to mean that means it's going to happen. But guess what? We're knocking on some doors. We're creating new opportunities. So for any of the people that kind of stand back and kind of question things, even if we don't, as a group, get the big funding, the state government might drag their heels and go, because they've pushed this hard, we're just not going to give it. But guess what? Other opportunities are being created. So see this Perth Awards thing, that's opened up.
Yeah.
We've had the Perth Festival thing open up. And the outcome of the awards thing might be, look, this isn't a great fit for us. But if they come back and say it's not a great fit for us, I can go to the Laugh Resort or whoever wants to do it and go, hey, when you go and apply to get your awards like the Darcy's properly funded or whatever else, you can do it in a way that you want to do it. You can actually go, look, we did the right thing. We reached out to Performing Arts Awards. They've got the theatre and whatever else. They said it's not quite the right fit. So we actually don't have a place. We actually need to create our own space that's professionally, as professionally as it can be presented as comedians. But it allows us, see the awards. I'm cool. If Life Resort wants to basically, see when I'm saying the awards, I don't need to be the person that runs them.
Yeah.
So I've got enough respect for the tradition of the Dousties and whoever else wants to do stuff. If that comes up and it's like, hey, here's 15 grand for you guys to hire out a space, put some drinks on, invite corporate people, do the Dousties in your silly way, but with a bit more polish. I'm totally cool with that. It's just leveling up everything, but we'll knock on the door of the performing arts thing.
Just ads.
Yeah, and the Perth Festival thing, so for example, I ran the ABC comedy debate at one of the WA Comedy Weeks, right? And it was North versus South. And I couldn't find a home to kind of keep doing that format. Now, that wasn't my idea. That was something that someone at ABC Perth had created. However, when I was talking to Perth Festival, I'm like, okay, they're not going to want any of the stuff that's happening at Fringe World. So, the stuff that already happens. But something a little bit intellectual, like a comedy debate, where they throw the money that allows the comedians that are participating money, because a debate you've got to prepare, right? You got to do meetings, so you've got to pay them that. It's not the same as paying someone like $500 for a club gig.
Yeah.
If someone's doing a debate like an Emo or a Colin or a Peter Rose,
it's not just your normal.
You've got to give them a better pay. I know that some of them do it because they know it's great exposure and want to give back to ABC. But just say, for example, Perth Festival comes and goes, hey, look, we can't do the same as Fringe World, but we want to do intellectual stuff like the comedy debate. Look, here's some money. You can do that at the Wrecker Bar. Or, hey, we'll do it at Government House. Something crazy because they do interesting stuff. Or someone like a Janelle Koenig. She did a night once with us called One Night Band, where she has a band and does a musical comedy, right? That fits perfect with Perth Festival. She might go, hey, I'm going to have a jazz ensemble and do my comedy with that. So just opening up those kind of new doors, and it just kind of opens up the scene. So if to remind people, I've been around in an era where Fringe World didn't exist. And look how much that opened up. The more things that we can kind of open up, it exponentially grows the scene. So for example, if we properly have, and this doesn't need to just be me, so if that's the concern about people going, he's only lobbying for himself. No, it's not. The moment where I actually get to see the moment where I start touring to Albany and then someone who's a good operator like a Daniel Delby gets confidence and he goes and does his teacher comedy stuff there. Then a Nicky goes, oh, hey, look, there's this kind of well-trodden path and these guys, they hit those 300, 500. Okay, I'm going to do it. So it's almost like once we sort of break the door open, it creates opportunity for more people. And a prime example...
Especially if the fork out isn't so big.
Yeah, reduce the risk. So I think that... And even see creatively, say for example, Perth Festival opens up one year and just so they go, look, we're only having 3 things and one might be a debate, one might be someone's intellectual idea that I haven't thought about. It could be the Todd Talks guys, they do interesting stuff. Could be Janelle. It gets artists and creatives thinking about a different way to present comedy. So they would go, okay, it can't be the style of
a normal stand-up gig.
It can't be Fringe World type of shows. It's got to be something that's more in line with, let's be real, Perth Festival is a bit more cerebral, a bit more artsy. So it can create a new type of thing, and it could be like someone doing crazy stuff like more projection mapping kind of gags on more. So I just think that we've hit this point where the great things are happening. Let's be real. There's great comedy club nights. There is touring opportunities. There's Fringe World. There's Perth Comedy Festival. That's been great. Let's start opening up some extra like
building on
touring.
top of what it is.
Yeah. So that's kind of, and even an example of how things open. Rechabite, the reason that's kicked off goes initially down to Colin Ebsworth. It was during post-COVID time. The main programmer at the time wanted Colin to do his talk show. It was at the Comedy Lounge, and for whatever reason, he was moving it potentially to the Rechabite. Colin's a friend of mine. He goes, look, I'd really appreciate if you came down and just make sure that this venue is like a good fit for what I'm doing and I'm not making a mistake. Because if he's going to kind of potentially end a relationship, you want to make sure you've got something to go to. So I rolled down the Rechabite. I'd never been in there before. I'd been away in Melbourne the whole time. I'd been redeveloped, and I rocked in, and I'm just like straight away. I hadn't done comedy for like 3 years, putting on gigs. I'm straight away, I'm like, man, I'm putting on a gala here for sure. And I think I pipped Colin to the post. I did a Crushers there with Paul, sold out, and then maybe like 2 weeks later, Colin did his Ebsworth tonight for the first time. Then what happened after that, I think maybe Delby might have did Who's Rhyme, and then I think the Motherhood might have rolled in there, and then some touring acts would have came in. And now, let's be honest, man, like everything pretty much rolls through there. Perth Comedy Festival rolls through there. There's touring acts throughout the year. Raw Comedy, as you know, just happened there. So I think that what people kind of forget, like sometimes people like myself and other people like Colin, like we're like we're pushing the frontier, and then once that kind of, just say for example, if I open the frontier and I start doing stuff at say Karratha or Albany or something, it gives people confidence to go, okay, cool, look, the risk is not as low. We know we may not hit the numbers that he's hit, but we know that there's a comedy crowd down there.
There's people that want something.
And they might be able to ask me, oh, how did it work? What did you do for it? Like, people ask those questions. And even, like, then it opens up. And here's another example of that on a smaller scale. So I hit Kalamunda Performing Arts Centre last October for the first time. The only comedy that's rolling through there is all A-list stuff. No WA comedy producers or acts use that. So I just kind of looked at it and I'm like, hey, it's like Arj Barker, Ross Noble, Jamal, and they're all rolling in there every tour. There must be a reason, right?
Must be selling, yeah.
And all credit to the girls that do the Kalamunda hotel. They do great stuff, right? So respect to them. They've done their bit for Kalamunda. So I rolled in there, did headliners, and had a really good outcome, right? It wouldn't have really been on most people's radars in the comedy scene as a space to use. But Mickey J from Sons of Fred, you know, he had a really good outcome doing some comedy at the Kalamunda Hotel and realised there's a big following for me. He hits me up, he goes, hey man, like, what's the higher fee for Kalamunda? And I just, straight up, I'm cool, I don't own the venue, I've just put a gig in there, go, look, this is the cost, here's my contact, let them know that I kind of recommended you, and this is how much I think you might need to spend on advertising to make it work. So it's one of those things. Basically, me opening up the door, people can roll in afterwards.
Yeah.
And sometimes it sucks. You secretly want to keep it as your venue, but I'm past that point. Like, once you don't, any venue for hire, you secretly kind of think it's your baby, but it's a venue for hire.
Yeah. If it's already been used by internationals.
I just like to get in there first.
Yeah.
So for example, like,
bust open the doors.
Well, it's just like it feels like sloppy seconds. So like, for me, the most exciting thing when I choose venues, and I'm not always the first one to hit a place, but I like to get in there and hit it first. So, for example, one of the weird ones I did last year was the Como Theatre.
I've seen that. It was great. Yeah.
So I went in there, I'm like, oh, look, I know that Joel Creasy had got a tour, and I know that Janelle was in there with them. And my competition wasn't with them anyway, but when I went in there, I'm like, oh, if I do it, I'm going in there first. Now, around the time of doing the gig, you're secretly like, yeah, it's a fucking hard gig, and fucking owned it, and it went well. But obviously the comedians make the gig work, but just that kind of like, wow, we found a new venue. If 6 weeks later someone rolled in there, you're just like, whatever, fucking do it. Like, great. The venue loves comedy and entertainment. By all means, I'm off to the next one.
Yeah.
So it's opening doors, and I think even...
Well, it's even giving people an idea of where to go.
Totally.
Yeah.
And let's be real, like, the sweet spot for us as the local comedy scene, the aspirational size is that 300 to 500. Your sort of 1,000s, it's when you either have a significant, this ties into what you're saying, the 1,000 seaters, you've either built a significant social media following of your kidgels, or you've got the TV presence of like Luke McGregor and stuff, kill.
Yeah.
Like he packs out, I think he did multiple nights at Heath Ledger. So the sweet spot for us that we can hit in that 300 to 500, sometimes if you have a strong enough show concept, it doesn't rely on the names.
Yeah.
So we know that I really believe that conceptually, without having many well-known TV or social media names, you can do 300s, 500s. 500s is a bit more of a stretch, but an example of that would be, and they're doing this as well, which is cool. So the 100% Scottish one.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's exact. I think there's like a few of them that are kind of the all. I don't know who the main all. I don't know if Grant's the main one of that's. I don't know.
That's pretty much Grant, Jill,
great.
and
So conceptually, they're building their profile and they're all doing good things, right? But they probably alone can't hit those numbers. But with a nice packaged up concept, Scottish, easy to remember, people can have a great time. They can hit those 300s or 500s. I think they've got Heath Ledger. So all that kind of stuff, it's great. And I think finding those 300-seater spaces and having a good... That's kind of where I think I sit in that kind of 300 to 500. When I roll in and kind of make one work, it gives people a bit of confidence. And even like a Delby, he's someone that's hitting good numbers. And I think Teachers Comedy does like sometimes like Astor, which might...
Yeah, he did Astor, yeah.
He's doing cracker figures. But like I know the numbers that he needs to kind of hit. So when I'm kind of talking to him late last year, WA Comedy Week, I'm like, oh, hey man, I've done a gig once upon a time in Fremantle Town Hall. If you're looking to hit like a new market where you haven't hit, it's a great venue. No one uses it. The only reason I don't use it is because I feel like City of Freo screwed us over. So I'm like, I'm not doing Freo, right?
Yeah.
But sharing that intel, it's kind of cool. And I mean, as long as you're secure enough in the gigs that you're doing, like share it around. And I mean, I feel the same way with encouraging.
I don't think it's competition, right? Like there's not enough people to buy tickets. If you're interesting enough and people want to see you, they'll see you. And if there's someone else, they're not going, oh, I can only see one gig this year.
2.5 million people in Perth.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens? And I'm guilty of this, and I think I'm less guilty of it because I don't hang around on a ground level at gigs and shit all the time. When you're in the scene, it shrinks down. The size and perception and who's doing what and the competitive, what gigs going on. We're in a little bubble that's not representative of the size. There's 2.5 million people.
It's a normal thing.
Yeah.
Bands will do it. Yeah. Comedians do it. It's not. There is people that buy the tickets.
I think when you're in the scene, it shrinks down, and then there's these. But one of the cool things is, I hope it's an unspoken rule because it's kind of the way that I operate. And the only promoters that I really verbally talk to would be maybe Paul Dragon occasionally, Colin. I don't really talk so much with Oasis. I don't talk to Comedy Lounge, but I like to think that there's kind of an unspoken rule. I think there kind of is. I just have the mindset of I just don't do things to screw the other people over.
Yeah, so directly trying to compete.
So for example, just say if someone's booked at a gig, right? I don't try and pinch them and go, oh hey man, look, the gig at Margs is going to be really great, and here's an extra couple hundred. It's just like, look, just
there's no need. It's just weird.
And there's been situations where I've lost out to talent, and they've had an opportunity to do like a weekend of gigs, and it's just kind of amicably kind of sorted itself out. I've just had to go, okay, comedian X, not a problem. I totally get it. And then maybe it'll switch around. And then another occasion, a host was, they double booked. And I just said to this person, hey, look, I've already put you in the promo. And this person went to the other promoter and goes, look, I've kind of done that. And from my understanding, it was all just like, no worries, we got it sorted. So I just hope to think that as everyone's got a little bit more mature, that it's just these unspoken things. I mean, look, it is business and there is commercial aspects to it. But getting back to that idea that you said, it is big enough. We sometimes forget. And just kind of finding your own little kind of niche. And I think my whole approach is I think that I have found my niche. So I'm not in direct competition with the other clubs. I do more of a once-off special event touring thing.
Yours is it's one of a kind in Perth.
I'm trying to do something different, and that's just what my thing is. And the way that I try and think, if you ever have any of those pangs, we're all human. Go, oh, the competition thing. Oh, they're doing something really great, or all the good things happen.
Good.
Do you know what I think? I just go great, because the perspective that I have to have. If my acts that I work with are doing club gigs at the clubs and getting better, when they come and gig with me, I've got razor sharp kind of match fit comedians. I'm only doing stuff once in a blue moon, and that's by choice. So for me, it's actually good the more gigs everyone's doing.
Yeah.
So I've had to, I think, and I'm in a situation that's...
It's a benefit to everyone.
But I understand that when the operators that are doing stuff that's a little bit more similar, like the club stuff, I don't want to speak for them. I don't know how they feel. They might be totally chill and there's no animosity or competition as well. But look, I think the only people that really care about this stuff, it's people within the scene. There's enough people. And I'll tell you a stupid thing that I used to kind of think as well. So when I did the gig at Side Splitter, which is a Coburn, right? Just say, this is not comedy related, some other promoters of mine were doing friends of mine were doing a wine festival in Mount Lawley. And you kind of have this dumb mindset of
there's people there, so they can't be here.
But guess what? People that live in Hamilton Hill and Freo do not go to Perth, and people that live in Leederville do not go to Side Splitter Comedy Festival. So you also have to have that kind of realisation that you're actually not competing in a lot of ways based on geography.
It's insane to think you are. What's the population of Rockingham? 100,000 people.
I had to kind of think that, man. I think I just learned that after a while, because when you do events in random places, just say, for example, the one that we did, the headliners in Mandan, you're not competing with anyone.
No.
There's no one there. The only challenge you've got, if you're smart enough, you go, okay, I know this is happening in 3 months. I know that I have to program good talent. So you just got to be a bit ahead of the game with the programming side of stuff
to make sure people turn up.
Because I'll tell you this, if you the fact that there's so many good gigs at the moment club-wise, you cannot just kind of leave things for 3, 4. You got to be, for me personally, I've got to be months ahead to make sure that I'm kind of, and I think one thing that the comedians kind of sometimes need to remember, look, all the promoters are pretty solid. If you say no and you're pretty decent, they'll look after you next time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Oh, this is one thing I've definitely got a voice. Oh man, I've not really articulated this. This will save me doing it via email. So this is my position in terms of my dealing with comedians.
Okay.
So it'd be passive aggressive to do it as a Facebook post, and people probably don't really know what way I kind of stand with kind of dealing with acts and all that kind of stuff. Now,
this is interesting.
Well, I like to say it's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Based on kind of respect. I'll do the right thing by you guys. I'll put you in a great venue. I'll market you really well. You'll be all over my socials. I'll elevate you as much as I can and create a great environment. When you're at my gigs, there's no kind of pressure if it doesn't work. It's supportive. I've got your back. Let's crush this. We're a team. So my position, and it probably applies mostly to the more experienced ones because I deal with them more so, just professionalism. If I offer you a gig via email or multiple times and you don't reply,
you're not getting one.
You ain't getting another one.
That makes sense.
And the thing is, if anyone wants to read between the lines why you're not getting gigs, if you've operated unprofessionally, if you've rocked up to my gig, and I don't run my gigs like a tyrant. It's pretty friendly, pretty welcoming. I don't try and be the star. I just do the show, bit of chit chat. It's mostly professional. I'm mostly just making sure the show's good, If you rock up, and it doesn't happen that often, if you rock up with an attitude at my gig and you're giving no energy, that's just not on. It's disrespectful, and I'm going to take it personally that you're being rude at my gig. And it's not that I'm not going to ever book you again, but I'm going to think twice.
It's going to be hard.
So it's professionalism. So if you're not replying to emails with gig offers, I'm not a cuck. You think I'm going to keep offering you gigs? There's people that want to do the gigs. And look, for most part, most folks are pretty good. But there's a handful of people, and they are these aren't bad people, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
You're just not professional.
Well, yeah. And see, when you kind of bring up these discussions with other people, other people tend to make excuses. Oh, they just got busier. They're a bit like that. You know what? That's not my problem. That's your problem.
I fucking
sort it out.
I hate that statement. Oh, they're busy. I'm like, man, I literally had 5 kids.
Yeah, exactly.
3 dogs, 2 businesses, and I still could reply to people.
It's a matter of priorities.
That's exactly what it is.
And you know what? See if someone goes, oh, they're just like this, and they just if someone
cool, they don't prioritize me, so I'm not going to prioritize them.
No, here's the funny thing. It's almost like it's a pick it and choose, because the same folks you might be talking about, they rock up to the gigs on time and they're doing their social media. So it's a priority thing. So so that's kind of with that sort of thing. Like, I'm really big on professionalism. If you reply within a decent time, I'm not going to operate like a tyrant, and see if I've got any.
I think communication's a pretty basic skill.
I guess because my background's in advertising and marketing, so see replying to emails and acknowledging. One thing that people actually do, and this is not necessarily specific to comedy, right? You need to just because you got an information from an email
doesn't mean they know you got it.
That you need to acknowledge it. Like sometimes, I think because sometimes I don't know if it's because they're not trained in the etiquette of email. Conversing, or if there is a bit of a self-absorbed nature that, hey, I've got what I need, and anything else because I think that's a component with corresponding with people, and there's been a bit of back and forth. You just need to acknowledge, yep, cool, no worries, sick, no. So I think there's a little bit of that. I'm very much about
just a closing email,
just professional etiquette, and look, for most part, a lot of people are really good. And I think another thing that's important as well, just say for example, if someone has done something a bit untoward, I think having a complete like black kind of listing forever, that's not cool. But you get a timeout.
Yeah.
Like if someone's messed me around, I'm like, look, I'm not booking you for a while, and if I run into you and we kind of repair the relationship and there's a bit of professionalism, boom, back on. There's nothing worse than holding grudges and things like that. And I guess maybe some of the younger comedians, the ones that do raw comedy and next gen and things like that, professionalism it's huge. Just that simple stuff, it'll get you so far. And here's another big one, and this is a credit to this person. I think it gets lost sometimes. The people that you book that support the room and what you're doing. So, for example, one person was really quite good at this back in the day when they were sort of coming up, like a Joe White. Like he'd be like liking the post, sharing posts. Like if he's in one of the gigs, he'd be like, say for example, sharing the social media. If he's at the gig, oh man, like I'm at the gig. All that kind of stuff, it's really appreciated. See, for example, if I'm running gigs and I'm tagging in talent when I'm promoting and they're not sharing or doing any... Now, here's one thing that I think gets lost on promoters because of the advent of social media. They think they can just completely lean on the talent. Yeah. I'm aware that my job when I'm doing the gigs is marketing and promoting. So I'm taking the heavy load. But just the obvious stuff like, hey, support...
It's a little 1%er.
It is.
Makes a big difference.
It is.
10 1%ers is 10%.
I'll tell you this, man, like the people that do the right thing and kind of play it professionally can definitely, and this is even outside of my relationship, I find they advance quicker.
Well, because they're doing the little things.
They're doing...
It's a bunch of little things that build up.
There is so much more than just the performance. See, just the corresponding, the professionalism, all that kind of stuff. It'll get people really far. And I think, who's really good at it? Like, Emo's really great at that stuff. Like, he's awesome. Like, I remember my first interaction with him, like, I think he had done like a Crushers gig and it was a 10-minute spot. And to his credit, because people laughed so much, he had breaks, he ended up doing a 13-minute spot. And I just had to kind of formally pull him up and go, look, man, like, you've went over a bit and whatever else. But I think I might have said, yeah, you did great. And he was so apologetic for so long, but I just appreciate it. And then anytime, and I never wanted to hold it over him, but he's very cool, even in the later era gigs. Oh, how am I going for time? And now I'm just like, whatever, man, you kill. Just like, there's that, but the relationship was that early on that it was like, hey, we got 10 minutes and it was a tight schedule. But he's always really appreciative of gigs.
I think I freaked out when I did the headliners in Mandurah. I only did 4. I was like,
But that's good though.
do not go over 5, and then I just did 4.
No, but see at that level where the stage and the vibe of the room and the talent of the other acts in the bill, I think it's better just to go in because you had a really strong opener, didn't you?
I crushed that whole set.
Yeah.
That's my fucking. I send that.
No, it's
But
good.
I'm like, hey, book me. Take
And
this.
for anyone listening, like sometimes they might have a perception that it's only just about the sort of the more established and polished acts. And where possible, even though I don't run club gigs, I do try and throw a bone to people. So you did the door for the headliners gig in Mandurah, and part of my remit with the city of Mandurah was that we feature some Mandurah locals, and we did that the year before. Jay Raymond, Dooley, and someone else, and look, threw you the bone, and the other guys are probably a little bit more experienced with you. But if I can, and I know that it's not going to derail the night by taking the risk, I'll throw it. And I think what we did, you went first on the second half, so that you were sandwiched in. And then there's other examples. When I did Next Gen Comedy, right, everyone really worries that if they don't win, they're done, right? And I'll let everyone know backstage, low pressure. If you don't win, you're going to be looked after and whatever else. So what had happened after Next Gen, Ian Burke obviously won, but I knew that I was going to be doing side splitter. So I'm like, hey, Chris Pacillo, you did really good. I'm going to throw you a bone. Jetro, you did really good. I'm going to throw you a bone. And then when we did the fresh comedy thing for WA Comedy Week, nearly all the good talent that didn't make the finals, I'd reached out to them. So Idmar, Nick Meehan, Martin Darcy, I can't remember if he was this year or last year. So I tried to look after everyone, and you got looked after at headliners, and even Chad Von Chad. So I try where possible to, in the limited time I can, support the newies, throw them a bone.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if I'm around doing this for a while, that's my new...
It's going to rotate through.
Yeah, and I think Dave Hughes, the English kind of comedian writer guy, I think I've thrown him a couple little bones. So he did a couple of spots during the Best of British at WA Comedy Week, and then I can't remember if I gave him a spot at Side Split. I might have. I just have to kind of like slowly kind of breed them in. And here's another thing that a lot of the comedians might not realise as well. Other comedians and promoters talk. So if someone's killing at one...
It'd be insane to think that they don't.
So if someone's killing at Paul Dragon's room and there's someone I haven't seen, he'll really vouch for them to me, right?
Yeah.
And then if someone's done really well at like Next Gen, I will vouch to him. So I might have told him. He might have been aware that Jetro did Xavier Susai's room, so might have seen him on social media. But when Jetro had done Next Gen, I was telling Paul some of the acts that I thought had done really well. And then maybe 3 weeks later, when Paul was doing his Comedy Shack gig at Burswood, Jetro was on the lineup. So we definitely talk and kind of share who's doing kind of good. There's also like a way that when people are hot, you know when someone's killing it. Like you were telling me, Martin Darcy's been killing it for ages, right?
I just seen this thing. You can see it in him.
Yeah.
There's this like, it's different and it's great.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe it. Hope he does now.
He does.
Hope he does now.
But isn't it funny? Like someone that's a bit like that. We knew Rory when he was real young, right? When he first started out, like real young, like bombing open mic Rory. But eventually he kind of put some things together. And this guy, Matt Williams, used to work as a helper for Vulture Culture. It was more just like a dude that was kind of there to help us with, setting up events. But he was younger than us and he wasn't involved in the comedy scene. He was more of a music guy. But he goes, oh man, he's seen something in Rory really early on before we kind of did.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like, and I think maybe with yourself, you kind of seen something.
Well, I considered him winning on Next Gen.
Yeah, right.
We were on the same heat.
Yeah.
I was like, you're in. I was like, it's you or Jetro, and then it was Nick and somebody else. And I was like, wait, what? No, I think it was Nick and Jetro. But Martin didn't get in. I was like, what?
Yeah. Do you know what the great thing about that was? I hadn't seen so many. That was my first. The weird thing is, I see people on social media, right? They might follow WA Comedy, or I see them at other gigs. So sometimes the weird thing is, sometimes You haven't met people, but you've seen them at gigs.
Yeah.
It's fucking odd. But anyway,
I'm a bit of a weirdo
it's a bit weird. So you kind of know people, you've never met them. Anywho, so Next Gen Comedy was so awesome to see all the young talent. I can honestly say this without shitting, like, to talk up, man. Like, the talent level overall was fucking good, man. I think we had about 35 contestants overall. If I was really honest, I think there was only maybe like a handful of difficult ones to get through. Overall, really good, really promising. And I remember early eras of comedy in Perth and it being way more hit and miss. So I think all these opportunities that people are creating it's leveled up.
Yeah, there's a lot of space to do stuff. And there's like people like Dan Ward, who works at the lounge, runs Mad Cow on a Monday.
Yep.
And that's kind of like everyone, we look as like the no risk gig.
Yeah.
You can go in and do whatever the fuck you want.
You need that though.
Yeah. But there's a lot of other gigs. It's like if you do it, you're like, I gotta do good here. So if I don't do good here, if I risk it, I might not get fucking booked for 3 more months.
That's fair, but as long as you've got the one where you're allowed to kind of stretch your wings and do the crazy stuff. Oh, that brings up another thing as well I was going to kind of mention. I think there's a fine line of thing that happens in Perth as well that I say this with all respect, but sometimes when acts get more established in Perth, there's this cushy comfort zone where acts just kind of sit and stop challenging themselves.
I think that's pretty standard in comedy.
I guess one thing I'd probably really like to encourage a lot of the talent, I really believe in them. So you've developed so much great material to have your 15 or your 30-minute set. You've already got it. So there's no question of your ability. I see the construction of the jokes. And maybe after a period of time, getting that consistent, regular dopamine hit where you know you're going to feel that kind of love from the crowd. And I think that the good pay, the good gigs, and just feeling comfortable, I think it's fucking dangerous.
Yeah, because I don't go back to working on shit.
And I'd like to and they could throw this back and because there can be that defensive thing when a bit of criticism's kind of thrown out. Believe me, even though I throw a lot of galas, right, and pretty stock standard things, I try and challenge myself as well. Like, I'm getting bored here. Let's go and hit up the gold fields. Let's take the tour. So even myself, like, I try and like get out of my little comfort zone. So if I want it to be comfortable, I just run a comedy gig and do it once every month on a Saturday. But that's not what I'm about. Like, for me to keep what I do interesting as a promoter, I've got to be out darting and kind of doing different stuff. So just with the comedians, and I guess the thing to mention to the more established acts, it's not saying change the whole set, but start to maybe throw, and they've got my back. So just say, for example, they're doing like the 10, 15 minutes support spot of gold. If you want to wedge like a couple of little 3-minute segments of your stuff that's not new on the night, you've already been gigging it around the clubs, like throw it in there. Because one thing that's actually coming back to me, which is a little bit concerning.
Already heard that joke.
See when I do the Facebook ads,
and
it's got like the promotes the show, you will get comments from people that love comedy in Perth and WA that go and check out all the club scenes and stuff, and they'll be like, oh, they better not do this joke. Or I don't actually use Reddit unless I might be Googling like a subject and Reddit comes up. I think when I was looking up something to do with WA comedy, or maybe WA Comedy Week came up and I was searching what sort of media coverage we had, and someone was talking about it in Reddit. They were talking about comedians in Perth, going like things like, oh, I've seen that same act 7 times. So I guess the thing is, one thing I've realised, because we've built an industry where people are seeing more comedy in Perth and there's more clubs, sometimes they're seeing the same act, and I think it's a little bit. I think David Bowie has a quote. I can't quite remember. It's like, if you've just got to go into the shallows, and if it's a little bit comfortable, you get a little bit deeper. It's just something along those lines. David Bowie
I know what you
said it
mean.
more eloquently, and I think this applies. Look, I like to think that in my respective way, even pushing this whole, making WA comedy better, that's my way of not being stuck in the status quo. So I think some of the acts...
Well, if you're building things to be bigger, people then have to be bigger to make it work with
Exactly.
you.
And you know what's one thing I really love? So let's flip it around the positive. See the young people that are coming up, like your Chris Pachillos and your Dave Hughes. They're hungry as fuck. They're trying to basically get those spots that other people might be gigging with me are. And it's like, see when someone catches heat at their level and they're on fire, they quickly get that spot. So here's an example of someone like that. And I know that they are still quite fresh, but I can rely on...
Probably two of the hardest workers.
Ian Burke, I can rely on. I'm like, man, he's hungry. He's writing... I know that some of his stuff we've kind of... But he's writing new jokes. He's pushing it. So I think that... I guess I want to say in a really positive way. Like, I look at these... some of the more established acts, like, man, you know how to construct a joke. Just throw some new ones in there, keep it fresh. It's good for you.
It is that kind of like, as you said, the comfy spot part. I know I can rely on this. This is going to work. This is fine. I'm not going to have any problems. The fear of failure kind of stops them. And it's that they don't have the same hunger that someone who wants to sell out theatres has. That is kind of like that little spot where they're like, I want to do that. Makes people go, I can go back and write more.
Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, hopefully it can inspire like just some of the acts to... It's a weird one because the flip side is one of the things that I need, so this is the counter argument, they wouldn't say this, but we're supposed to be reliable, or don't do new gear. I actually never say that. So I guess...
that's just what they're used to hearing.
Yeah, so it's catch-22. So... For anyone that's trying to become a paid support act, what the promoters want is consistency and reliability. See, once I know that I can just go, cool, it's not going to go dip up and down, it's going to be pretty solid. You're into my people that I kind of work with, and that's fine. I guess the only thing that I want to add to that, within that trust that I start to build with acts on my bill, hey, if you want to like just mix things up a little bit, you've got my support. Totally. Yeah. So much unspoken stuff in comedy.
Oh.
I think you have to figure out half of it yourself.
Most of
backstage. There's no, and it's different for everyone, and there's different. Look, hey, see all the stuff I'm talking about. That's my perspective. The way and the feeling that other promoters have, they'll have their own unique take. But yeah.
I reckon we wrap it up there.
Done.
All right, cheers for coming on.
How long do we go?
2:10, 2:19.